Sorry for the delay, folks, there. Apparently our audio didn't want to work properly. We're working now. Welcome to the show, everybody. It is Thursday, and it is what is it today? 13th of February, is it not? Day before Valentine's Day. Plenty of love in the air, right? I'm your host, Dave McHugh. Welcome into Hoopsville on this Thursday evening. Plenty to talk about as the first regional rankings have hit the air. Or hit the internet, I guess, is a better way of saying that. So we'll talk about them plenty, I am sure. Certainly a new Top 25 out on Monday. We'll be chatting about that to some degree. Great night of basketball on Wednesday night. There's plenty to talk about in that category, though as chock-a-block as it was with really good games, it kind of went chalk. For those wondering what that means, basically not as many upsets as I expected, and I don't even know if upsets is the right word, but things became a little more clear in some conference races. Mount Union defeated Marietta for the second time this season, though Mount Union playing with fire there at the end. And and then I was at Hopkins for number 1 versus number 7, Swarthmore at Johns Hopkins in men's basketball. That was a pretty darn good game. Even had a thrilling middle halftime. And there was plenty of other good games going on. So there's lots to try and figure out tonight. We're not going to get it all solved, but there's plenty to talk about tonight, and we hope you'll join us. You can tune in how you normally would tune in, and that is either as you're watching us now on our main show page or on the d3hoopsville.com website. You can also join us on the Facebook live stream, simulcasting there, facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're back on YouTube, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. Finally got whatever shenanigans that was cleared up. As Drew is already chatting with us. We'll get to your comment there, Drew, in a moment. You can interact with us. You can tweet us at D3Hoopsville or use the hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. If you haven't tuned in and heard that address before, it's because I just realized I may have been forgetting that we had changed it, and the D3 Hoops one wasn't working. But hoopsville@d3sports.com is your go-to email address. We're on Instagram at D3Hoopsville there as well, though we usually use that primarily as a promotional tool. And if you're on Facebook, you can chat with us there as well. So lots of ways on YouTube you can chat with us, lots of ways to get with us, lots of ways to talk, and we have lots of things to discuss tonight. Let's talk about guests this evening. Somehow I only booked one men's guest tonight, at least a coach. Basically, my sleep deprivation, I think, got the best of me there. I did decide to leave out a region on the off chance I might need to sneak them into the show tonight, and that's kind of where this all led. But Steve Lammy, the Grove City men's basketball coach, will join us here in a short bit. Talk about his 11-game winning streak Wolverines and how they're playing at Grove City on top of the PAC. That'll be fun to chat about. Lucia Robinson-Griggs, the women's basketball coach at Vassar, will join us. She's in her first season there, former assistant at MIT, former associate head coach at MIT. Took over the program in September, and Vassar women are playing pretty darn well. Tanya Englund will join us from Wisconsin-Eau Claire women's basketball. She'll be in our WBCA Center Court segment. Speaking of MIT, we talked about fundraising earlier in the year with their head coach. We'll talk more about fundraising and how important it is for women, for any program, to be honest, with Coach Englund, especially her fast break program. Justin Heinzen will join us from Loris. I hope I said Justin's last name correctly. Loris is ranked 10th in the country and on top of the regional rankings on the women's side. We'll talk to him coming up as well about his program. What else? And then Matt Snyder will join us. He's a Calvin grad, and we will talk to him about strength of schedule. He is the guru, as it were, mathematically in that category. So we will talk to him about how all that pans out. It is an interesting conversation, to say the least. Really, what does the number mean? How does it work? Et cetera, et cetera. Lots to discuss along the way. So there's your old get out, and we hope you'll enjoy the show tonight. A reminder, Sunday's show will not air at its usually scheduled time. That is because I have some work I need to do that evening, so I will be unavailable. So we will be on air instead on Monday at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. So you've been warned, as they say. So tune in on Sunday. Or not Sundays, tune in on Monday. We'll get through some results. I'm just double-checking that nobody is... Drew asked the NACC getting some deserved love in the regional rankings. Both Benedictine and Wisconsin Lutheran and Edgewood women. Yeah, I think Benedictine made some sense. I don't see where you see Wisconsin Lutheran unless you're talking on the women's side. Oh, I see what you did. Yeah, you were talking on the women's side. Sorry. Yeah, Wisconsin Lutheran on the women's side along with Edgewood and Benedictine on the women's side. Benedictine on the men's side is by themselves ranked. Yeah, first regional rankings, let's remember here, not all the data being used. So these rankings will change probably quite a bit next week. The results versus regionally ranked opponents is not a data point being used. So rankings look good now. You get a sense of where teams are. On the men's side, I'm a little surprised that Stevens is as high as they are, but I know their numbers are strong. Yeshiva being in 2 is a nod to them and their winning percentage. TCNJ to be in there with 8 losses is a little surprising, but again, there's some numbers here that outweigh. When we get to the results versus regionally ranked, I suspect that will shuffle. That being said, the Atlantic region is also not all that strong, and so not surprisingly, we're going to get some teams ranked there that probably wouldn't be normally in another region. Central region looked pretty set. The East region, I'm not overly shocked by it. Again, not a strong region. May get some at-large bids this year. Basically, the point is you get a sense of where they think things are. Next week, we'll get far more of that sense once all the data is in. St. Joseph's of Connecticut, who not only in their after 48 games is ranked for the first time in program history, they're regionally ranked 8. Not too bad at 17-2. The South, there was some kerfuffle over Emory and Randolph-Macon, Emory being ranked ahead of Randolph-Macon. They both have a common opponent in Guilford. Both teams have beaten Guilford and handily, and Emory does have a buzzer-beater loss to Guilford. I think that ended up being a wash, especially when Emory's got a SOS that is .060, stronger than Randolph-Macon, and only 4 game different in the win column, 2 game different in the loss column. For now, Emory stays number 1. We'll see how long that lasts. Interestingly enough, the ASC has quite a few teams in, and that's a good sign. Center, I think you got to be nervous sitting at 4 without the results versus regionally ranked being added. Once that's added, we'll see where they slot in. If you got to be happy if you're St. Thomas and St. John's, because the indications are you can probably get in that large bid. Everybody else, I think the alert's got to be out there that you may not. So interesting results on those regional rankings on the men's side. And on the women's side, you see the slight differences in the committees. The women's side, the SOS doesn't tend to play as big a role. I think the Great Lakes panned out exactly how I expected it. Hope DePaul, Transylvania, with John Carroll ahead of Baldwin Wallace. The Mid-Atlantic certainly panned out about like I expected. I thought Albright might be a little bit higher, but that is an example where the SOS isn't strong and the committee's not going to go overly on board with Albright. Albright, of course, then lost again on last night. So, the regional rankings, first one, I always gives us a barometer. Gives us a sense of where things are. We don't overly get crazy about it. But it's a good idea. Top 25, as we said, came out. I meant to check if there were any big movers. There weren't a ton of big movers. New into the poll, St. Joseph's, as we mentioned on the men's side, St. Norbert, Benedictine, and Augustana filling out the bottom 4 spots. On the women's side, just 2 new teams, John Carroll and DeSales. Another first-place vote went away from Swarthmore, so they now have 5 voters of the 25 voting for somebody but Swarthmore. Again, I got to see Swarthmore last night. I finally saw the game I've been waiting for him a couple of weeks. Really good battle in the first half against Johns Hopkins. Probably about 5 minutes left in the first half. Swarthmore kind of put their foot down a little bit and pulled away to a slightly comfortable lead. And, what is it, 5 or something? Second half, though, Swarthmore exploded out of the gate. They went 7 of their first 10, while Hopkins went 3 of their first 14, part of a 19-4 run. I think they might have even been larger than that, because Swarthmore got out to a 20-point lead, and I was just about worried that game was over, that it was going to be a dud of a finish, when Johns Hopkins went on its own 11-2 run, or 10-3, something like that, stormed back into it, got to within single digits. I think they got as close as 7, if memory serves. They had led by as many as 5 in the first half. The teams kind of went back and forth from there, and then Swarthmore, in the closing 2 minutes, able to pull themselves to about 14 points. The game wasn't a 14-point game. Again, if that first half doesn't, or that start of the second half doesn't happen, or Hopkins can at least stop what Swarthmore was doing. Swarthmore was clicking on offense to start that second half, just chewing through the defense. If Hopkins is able to get some stops and hit some shots, that game's going all the way to the end. And then literally you're talking about a difference of, 5 minutes there? It shows you got to play 40. It shows you Hopkins isn't as experienced as SWAT. Now, SWAT's got that experience, no surprise. Slightly better in a lot of categories, though best guard on the floor was with Hopkins. But the inside game of Swarthmore is pretty good. But I was glad to go to it for second time in Centennial history that 2 top 10 teams took to the floor. Both times have featured Hopkins, by the way. So hats off to Swarthmore, who stays undefeated. I depending on how the rest of the week goes, I might consider going back to Swarthmore with my first place vote. First loss in the top 25 goes, if you're going from top to bottom, goes to Hopkins. Hopkins is 7. I had him at 10. I think that's about as high as I want to put Hopkins. I don't think Hopkins. I don't know if Hopkins is a top 10 program, but they're darn good. I'm comfortable with them in my top 25. I'm comfortable with them in the upper half for sure. Well, upper 15. Marietta, as we mentioned, lost to Mount Union. They're in this 15 hole. That'll be interesting. They're now 18-4, while Mount Union is 19-3. Elmer's lost again. What's this, 4 out of 5 games? This time to the Titans of Illinois Wesleyan. They'll have Milliken coming up, so Elmer's should get back on the winning side of things, but Milliken can be tough. But Elmer seems to be reeling right now, and if you read some people on the chat boards, it's all about defense. Babson lost again, this time the WPI, 75-56. They're without Oftring is Babson, and maybe I gave them a 24th place vote this week for the first time in several weeks. 23rd, because I thought they were starting to play well even without him. I might be wrong. Benedictine entered the poll and then lost to MSOE in overtime, 65-64. Augustana entered the poll and lost to North Central in a game that I don't think was as close as the 70-55 score would indicate. North Central handled Augustana in that game. Augustana now 16-7. In the receiving votes category, only one loss that I can see. It's Widener, surprisingly. So all those receiving votes at least have held firm or have not played. On the women's side, St. Thomas lost to Bethel. That was a big win for Bethel, especially coming off of that embarrassing loss to St. Mary's. John Carroll lost to Baldwin Wallace just after going ahead of him in the regional rankings. So those two will probably flip in the regional rankings, all things even otherwise. Albright lost again, as we mentioned, to Widener, 69-68. And Albion lost to Trine. This is in women's. These are receiving votes category. So a quiet Wednesday. But we had a quiet Wednesday last week and an absolutely nutty Saturday. Or I should say weekend. Crazy sequence last night. I'll finish the first segment with this. I was at that Swarthmore-Hopkins game. And I'm pretty used to seeing some strange things over time. And this was a strange one. So the referees blow it dead with possession of Swarthmore, second half. By the way, if you were watching, you might have been confused. Hopkins was wearing their road blacks, Swarthmore in their home whites. It was a blackout night for Hopkins. So they blow the play dead. There had been a shot by Swarthmore that had missed the rim, but the shot clock had reset. And the officials blew it dead at one point, realizing the shot clock, which had gotten down to, it took a couple seconds to come off. And so two of the officials have a quick conversation. And I recognize two of the three, by the way. I know two of the three. And the lead official goes over to the scorer's table to figure it out with the scorer's table, which also included live stats. They're in the middle of getting to an answer, from what I can tell, when all of a sudden there's a whistle at the baseline. Ball is inbounded, and the official is at midcourt not paying attention. He comes sprinting in, grabbing his whistle. I'm assuming he's going to blow it dead, changes his mind, because his actions showed he was going to blow it dead, changes his mind and lets it play. It was an incorrect shot clock. It was at 16. That was not the time on the shot clock. That was incorrect. And the official didn't want to overrule his cohorts. The other one he had discussed this with didn't overrule the third guy. And to say things got a little testy would be an understatement. They gave Josh Leffler plenty of leash. Two officials did. The one who screwed up, I don't think ever talked to Josh about it, or at least not in the immediate aftermath. The one who was at the scorer's table went and talked to Leffler. That went as well as you can probably expect it. And then the taller guy goes and at one point talks to him. And I could tell from the way Leffler was interacting with him, and a few times from what I could hear, the official was definitely giving him leash. And a couple times put his hand out like, okay, enough. And then Leffler would get a little bit more. And you get a hand, and you get a little bit more. You could tell they were giving it, and rightly so. Long story short, at least it didn't dictate the outcome. But as I got wind through circles and sources as were today, that play's already gone out to officials in the greater region as in a do not do this. Two of those guys are aces, and they were called out for the mistake. One of them was the guy on the baseline. One of them was at the scorer's table. And from everything I can tell, the word was, no, everyone's going to remember this game and everyone's going to remember that mistake. And they're right. I have never seen that. I have seen many a time where an official's at the scorer's table trying to figure something out. Another official either loses track of that or whatever the case may be and goes and blows, get the play in, and the official at the scorer's table immediately blows his whistle or yells or whatever he needs to do, shuts it down. Even on the women's side of things, they'll do it. I'd never seen the play continue. Just insanity. And those I was sitting around, administrators of the game, we all just sat there with our jaws on the floor in disbelief as to what had happened. It was one of the crazier sequences. Officials are obviously human. As one official said to me, you always fear about making the big mistake, and you are going to make a big mistake. They're human after all, just as a player, a coach, whatever, makes a big mistake. You know you're going to make one. You just hope it's not a significant one or one that's in a significant game. This happened in a significant game, was a significant mistake, and now at least the coaching ranks are talking about it. So it's an interesting moment, to say the least. Don't see a lot of you interacting with us. Don't know why. That's okay. You can find ways to interact with us however you'd like. Got questions for us? Tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. I hope everyone can enjoy it. If you're having trouble, feel free to jump over to the YouTube and Facebook. I didn't see anything wrong with our stream, by the way, in case anyone's tuned in. I got an email saying there might be one. Yeah, it's running smooth for me. All right, take a break. When we come back, Steve Lammy will join us to talk about the Grove City team. May not be talking about them on top of the PAC in the Great Lakes region, but after a really rough start, they've won 11 in a row. And most importantly, they're on top of the conference, looking to try and win the conference and advance in the NCAA tournament. We'll talk to him coming up all about that and where things stand. Over my shoulder and in the corner, you might see our fundraising efforts. Raised a little bit more money this week, but not a lot. Want to raise more. I got to fix the spelling on Monday there. Got to fix that M. You see our goal by Monday. We're going to raise the goal whether we make it or not. So I'm just trying to get there a little easier. We'll be back with more Hoopsville from the WBCA NABC Studios presented by D3Hoops.com after this.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor's Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
I just wanted to get good grades and to do well. But it also made me realize that I have a lot of career goals.
You're there to get a full college experience, not only participate in your sport, but participate in things outside of that. And it's all about growing as a person.
My coaches have helped me with figuring out who I really am. Their lives are dedicated for us to succeed.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show on this Thursday evening. A reminder, we will be off air on Sunday. We'll actually air the show on Monday instead, so tune in then, as it were, and we will get to it. Hopefully, lots to talk about from the weekend as well. Again, another quiet week to start things, but I have a gut feeling that we will see a lot of action this weekend in terms of results. Though, as a top 25 voter, I wouldn't mind a quiet week. We've had quite a bit of craziness this season. I feel like my top, I don't know, maybe my top three I feel comfortable with, maybe my top four. The rest of it feels like a free-for-all. Some teams in the top are not getting top 25 attention. We certainly focus on nonetheless, and I try and get around to as many conferences as we can. Got 43 conferences. By argument, we should easily get to 43 conferences throughout the season, but sometimes there just isn't any races to talk about. One race I've been quietly keeping an eye on is the Pennsylvania Athletic Conference race, and then I took my eyes away from it, and then I looked back at it, and I had missed that Grove City had entered the equation. They are now on top of the conference by 2.5 games on Chatham. Remember, Chatham last year made it to the NCAA tournament for the very first time under their first-year head coach last year, but in their fourth or fifth year running things. Of course, this is a different PAC with Thomas More gone, but Grove City has its moments, and we've certainly seen them over the years. They're having a moment as it were, now at 15-7. But here's the crazier part. They lost their opening 4 games of the season, 5 of their opening 6, and 6 of their opening 9. But now they're 15-7 because they're on an 11-game winning streak. Joining us on the BlueFrame Technology Hoopsville Hotline, it's their head coach, Steve Lammy. And, Coach, you got to be pretty thrilled with how this season has now progressed.
Especially after how it started, Dave. Yes, I am.
Yeah, absolutely after it started. Again, the opening 4 games were losses to Hilbert, Allegheny, John Carroll. Of course, pretty tough opponent there, and Franciscan. Got a win over La Roche, which was significant considering La Roche was in the conversation, and then dropped one to Capital. At what point were you guys like, okay, this isn't working right now?
We were on suicide watch for the first, I would say, month of the season. But part of it was we had some injuries. The other part was that we were playing really good competition. And the third was we weren't very good at what we do a lot. And that took some time, even though we had so many returners from last year's team.
Yeah, I was going to say, this isn't a young team. You've got some experience. No. Was there frustration from them? Was it just maybe sometimes, and I've seen this before, you have confidence that you're going to figure it out, and out of the gate you all of a sudden realize this is going to take a little more effort?
I think a part of it was our team the players had gotten together, and we do this every year. They set goals for the season. And this year, their goal was to win a PAC championship.
Okay.
And in the back of my mind, I didn't like that goal, but it's their goal, and so I said, okay, let's run with it. And the reason I don't like that goal was that we never played to win a championship. The goal has been to play to a standard. I mean, that's how I was coached, and that's how I've coached ever since coming to Grove City. So I was getting away from my philosophy. So when you're 0-4 and you realize that, part of it is, we're not being very good at what we do a lot, and our guys were pressing, putting a lot of pressure on themselves. And so we had a brief team meeting, and I said, guys, we're just going to go back to the philosophy, and that is we play to a standard and then let the results speak for themselves.
Yes.
And I think at that point it helped us just refocus our energies on things that we could control, which was like jumping to the ball or closing out properly or blocking out or running our flex offense, rather than the outcome, which ultimately you can only control your own motions and your own body and your own attitude, and that's what we try to refocus on.
Yeah, somewhat taking the pressure off, releasing the valve, as it were. Hey, guys, let's get back to just game by game and stop worrying about the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And another thing, too, to some degree, is, okay, so you bungled the beginning of the season. Great. But there weren't any conference opponents in that run. The idea of still winning a conference tournament can be there, but you just got to go back to the execution side.
That's correct. And honestly, that conversation that we had after 0-4, we've never talked about it since. It's always, all right, hey, what are we going to do today? And we're going to play to a standard. What are we going to do today? Well, we're going to do what we do a lot. We're going to be good at what we do a lot. And so just that refocus on our bedrock philosophy, I think has really helped us weather that early storm, because they did believe in what we were doing. It's just that they were pressing a little bit too much. And like I said, it was tough competition, and we were banged up early on as well.
I misspoke when I started. I said lost 6 of the first 9, 6 of the first 10. I didn't do the math right. After that 5 losses in 6 games, you still ended up, unfortunately, losing 2 of the next 5 games, winning 3, a couple of them in the conference. You kind of split the conference out of the gate. The last loss, though, came on January 4th against Chatham, which we knew from last year was pretty good. That's when things clicked, and since then you're undefeated, including a win over Chatham, 74-65. So that 2.5-game lead is really a 3-game lead since you've got the tiebreaker.
Correct.
I assume it's all about confidence now. Do you worry about too much confidence, or is this where the team should have been?
I don't worry about overconfidence because of we played a non-league game just last night against a really good Penn State Altoona team, and sometimes a non-league game late in the season can be a tripping point because you don't take that game seriously. It's a non-league game. You can rest. There are a lot of psychological things that can happen. We never mentioned it being a non-league game. It was a game on the schedule. We play every Wednesday, Saturday, and we're going to treat it like we do every other game. And I think that's one of the blessings to our team is, hey, every game's the same, and you play to the standard to the opponent. And so, no, there's no overconfidence with us. I think the other thing is that our guys are smart enough to understand that the margin of error is so slim that we have to play. There are 1,000 ways to play basketball. At least at Grove City, we know that we have to play that there's only one path. There's only one way, and our guys have bought into that. And so even if we start to color outside the lines while we play, I hear it from the bench. I don't have to call a timeout oftentimes and get them refocused. They're kind of doing that on their own. They're policing their own actions on the floor, and I think that's a sign of a humble team, a team that kind of knows itself.
Sure, I agree with you to a larger extent. It's a good point, especially if you don't have to remind them of the little things, if they're reminding them themselves.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this team specifically a little bit. As you pointed out, certainly a lot of experience coming back. You've got a handful of seniors. It's otherwise a junior-led team, to be honest. I've got 2 seniors and then about five or more juniors. So this team, while they won a PAC championship this year, and you're certainly playing towards one, you're also building a little bit towards some longevity with this program.
Yeah, we hope, but so much of that is what a young man does over the summer. And we say that a year older does not necessarily mean a year better.
Right.
You have to put in the time. And I think our players, especially in the junior class, I mean, there's some skilled players there, but they understand that without the system, it just doesn't work compared to the people that we play. So if they were good in the system, we'll be competitive. So again, all we're trying to do is repeat. And again, I'm probably not a good interviewee because I'm saying the same things. It's just you got to play your own style, and you got to believe in that. And our style it's definitely an outlier. We play the flex offense, which is as old as I am, and we switch everything defensively.
Okay.
But we know it works for us. It's not for every program, but for us, that's the one path out of 1,000.
But let's be honest, that's a secret to basketball. Well, it's not even a secret. You really do have to be what works for you. And I think some of the best coaches are the ones who are willing to understand, listen, this system isn't going to work for these guys. We're going to have to find something different. Or they're able to get the recruits that work for their system. There's 100 ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
You were an old Princeton-style guy. Now you've gone to this flex over the last, I don't remember what, but 6-odd years.
Yes.
Was that because of the students you were getting in or the changes of the game and thus the students you were getting? Or was it because you felt you just needed to do something different?
No. Well, we were not having success with the Princeton offense that we were running the last couple of years that we were running it, and also our pack line defense. And there are a couple of factors that go into that. One, we weren't getting the shooters that we were getting maybe 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
The league changed as well, so we went from like a 7-team league, and then joining us was St. Vincent, or Westminster, Geneva, all of those historically great basketball programs.
Yeah.
And so the landscape changed. Of course, another thing that is not often mentioned is that everyone's fighting for the same body of students.
True.
And in an area where we're losing a population in western Pennsylvania. So there's more pressure on recruiting and discounting and things like that. So all of those things played a part in us having to change because we were playing, I would say, the same style as everybody else,
Sure.
generally speaking. But it was insanity because we were expecting a different result, not having the same, I would say, caliber of players. So we had to change.
The old saying, you keep doing the same thing over and over, looking for a different result.
Yeah.
Quickly, your top four: James Wells, a senior; Justin Rice, a junior; Nate Peters, a senior; and Eric. Is it
Eric? Yes, Miners.
Miners. I'm trying to ignore the E there. All four of them, I'm going to call in double figures. Miners is a junior, by the way, but he's at 9.5 points a game. But 15 points for Wells, Rice at 14, Peters at 13. We should also point out Wells is your top rebound guy. Statistically, we know those are your four top guys, but I can tell by looking, you go deep into a bench every single game. What else about this unit works outside of just running the flex and running a switch defense?
We try to play 12 players a game. Now, some of those players are getting more significant minutes, just like the four that you mentioned.
Right.
And there are other players that may have limited skills, or maybe they're a little bit slow, and they're literally on the clock for sometimes 45 seconds to a minute, and then we run somebody else in at that same position, with the thought that a fresh player is going to be faster and more able to block out and do the little things than another player. So some of the, I would say the rank and file guys, they have to play shorter stints in order to be effective. In order for us to be effective defensively.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Before we let you go, I want to talk a little bit of history here. You talk about trying to go for a PAC championship. That hasn't happened since 2010. You've won 4 there, and we've had some gaps here. But what's impressive is that, as you said, you've adjusted to what hasn't worked, and now you seem to have a team that can maybe get over the hump, as it were. Is this a team that can win the PAC championship? As much as you don't want it as a goal, is it realistic?
You're asking me a question I don't even want an answer because
I had a feeling.
Yeah, because I'm going to give you the best coach speak I can give you, Dave.
Oh.
We're focused on Saturday.
Oh, come on.
And you know what? I actually believe that. Like,
sure, no,
I'm
get
brainwashed.
that.
And you know what? I was coached by John Barr, who was my predecessor.
Oh, well done, sir. I've got
20...
a picture.
Oh, you do? Okay. Well, he was just in my office last week. He's 82 years old, and he hasn't changed a bit. But and he ingrained in me this thought of it's the process. You know, and back then it was interesting because we were not in a league. We were an independent Division III school, and so the 22 games that we played, every game was like our championship. Honestly, you know, we went into every game thinking that this is our NCAA game because there was nothing to play for afterwards. I mean, there was no league championship, and maybe you get an at-large bid. You knew how difficult it is to get an at-large bid.
Right.
That was our holy grail if we could achieve that. But you know, we didn't look at that that way. It was every game on the schedule is our NCAA game.
Sure.
And hopefully I've brainwashed my guys to think the same way.
No, and I get it. I totally do. And obviously, Teal's coming up. Coca-Cola's got them supported, so it's a tougher challenge. But it's also your last home game because you'll play 2 more on the road. So there's a lot of important things going on. Obviously, a win here, and you all but wrap up the regular season title, which means you'll host at home. So obviously, the next game is the most important.
Right. Yes, it is. Yeah, and after that game, Wednesday will be.
Well, then, right, and then you move on from there.
Yeah. And you're rolling your eyes, I'm sure, because I'm giving you a coach speak. But
oh no, I get it.
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
I get it. Real quick about your history, you're the 3rd coach. I might have had that wrong. In the program, you followed your predecessor in Barr, who coached you, and you were an assistant.
Yes.
You've been there a long time. Your wife is a women's soccer coach. I hate to tell you, she has a few more wins.
Yeah, she is the coach in the family, and I admit that.
But what's it like to be, and your SID, Briggsy, gave me a great stat, that there isn't a lot of turnover at Grove City, and there's a lot of ways to look at that. But the way I want to look at it is that it feels like Grove City is a family. There's more important things than winning championships. Championships are great. We'll be competitive when we can. But what's it like to be in an atmosphere like that, if I've seen it properly from my perspective?
Yeah, I think you have, Dave. Well, and it's my alma mater, so
right.
I know the culture. Our athletic director, Todd Gibson, preaches Wolverines together. Mm-hmm. And what's fun is that in our basketball games, we'll have half the football team in attendance.
That's awesome.
And when we go to the football games, all 20 of us are in attendance.
That's awesome.
But it's just not football, basketball. It's us in volleyball and volleyball and soccer. So there is a networking, I would say, of athletes on campus that really do support each other. And the other thing is, there's not a separation. It's not as if the athletes have a different academic standard than everybody else. I mean, you have to merit acceptance just like everybody else.
Sure.
So it is definitely a family atmosphere.
No, that's cool. I'm glad to see you're succeeding. I know we run into each other often in the postseason, usually, and I love seeing you. But it's fun to get you on the show, talk about the team, and go ahead, drink the Kool-Aid. It's working. You've won 11 straight. Drink it. Drink it as much as you can, sir. There's nothing wrong with this. Before we let you go, though, we always give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
Yeah, I'm sitting here being interviewed by you, Dave, and I really appreciate that. But in my office, I have a 16-year veteran assistant in Sean Severson.
Mm-hmm.
He's been my right-hand man, and honestly, he's the associate head coach. And I am blessed to have someone with that much experience, but also someone with that much loyalty that he's been with me. I mean, we think the same thoughts, and our success is directly attributable to his efforts as well.
That's great. You're very much like Worcester in that sense. There's not a lot of long-term assistants or associates in that case, and that's very reminiscent. Congratulations. I look forward to talking about Grove City as the season progresses here and towards the end, and I know I'll run into you down the road, but hopefully it's with your team.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Dave.
Absolutely. Take care of yourself, sir.
Take care.
Steve Lammy joining us here on the Hoopsville BlueFrame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. And by the way, Grove City women, take a look at them. They're third in that conference right now. Coach Fuss has them 2 games out of first place from St. Vincent, and they're 19-3. Fun times at Grove City. And that's what I love about this sometimes, is we don't always have to talk about the teams that we talk about every single year. There are teams like Grove City that are going to emerge, and sometimes it's worth taking the time to chat with them and get to understand a different version of Division III. Coach Lammy, appreciate his time. Thanks to Briggsy, their SID, as well. We'll take another break. When we come back, switch gears, talk women's basketball. Coming up, who is it? Oh, yeah, it's Vassar. Coaching change, and still doing pretty darn well there. We'll talk to their head coach coming up. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. More after this.
Being a part of the different activities and organizations that I've been a part of, I'm actually able to see myself where I'm like, hey, I actually can make a change. I'm one person that can make a difference.
Division III has helped me to develop teamwork skills, critical thinking skills, time management skills.
It's not just about basketball, or it's not just about school. It's about developing yourself as a person altogether.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
For the love of the game. That's what it's all about, they say. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that.
It's more about team and the schools and communities we represent.
And for the many of us blessed with the strength to compete in sport at the college level, we understand that with what we were given comes a special obligation.
Our obligation to help those who have their own special needs and whose love for the game is no less intense.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. Since August of 2011, we and others from Division III campus communities have volunteered more than 250,000 hours, time away from the classroom and practice field, reaching across the country to coach and mentor Special Olympics athletes.
And to learn that in giving, we receive so much more in return. Help us keep that dream alive.
Be part of it.
Get involved.
You can make a difference.
It's on us to stop sexual assault
in any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
to stand up.
To make our community safe for all. It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Sorry about the audio in the last segment. A little bit different on the phone. It's one of the reasons I've actually, in the last few days, even a week, have been looking into doing the show differently in terms of tech. You can't see what I've got. I got a large audio board. I've got a telephone system. Back when we built this studio, that's what was needed, because cell phone interviews were very difficult, especially in this studio. We have no service in here, except thanks to Wi-Fi calling, we do now. So anyway, long story short, in the last few days, I've been debating about getting this kind of cool new board that would really help us and kind of easy things up a bit. But it costs about $500-600, certainly more than this board cost. Anyway, I might do it now that we did that. But see that fundraiser up there? We're going to need your help to get it done, to be blunt. If you want more information, we'll tweet it out, though it's pinned at the top of our Twitter account. It's also pinned at the top of our Facebook account, but we'll send out some information on that. And if our audio is a little off for the rest, for the next few minutes, don't worry, I'm tweaking it to get it back to where we were. Women's basketball, Vassar women's basketball has had some pretty good seasons over the last few years. Of course, one of the coaches we've had on the show is Candace Signer-Brown. She has done amazing things at Vassar, a disciple having played under one of our friends in Bill Fink. Bill Fink, that's a former photographer of mine in my TV business. Anyway, she moved on to Swarthmore in the offseason, and Vassar needed a new coach. And they didn't hire one until September when they finally got one on board. And, yeah, a little rough start, kind of like we just talked about with Grove City. They lost 2 of their first 5, and we can keep going. Basically, before Christmas, things were about 500. But since then, certainly playing well. And in the Liberty standings, they are a game back, tied with St. Lawrence of Ithaca. So I figured when you have a first-year coach and you're in the battle, let's go talk to him. Joining us on the Hoopsville's the Hoopsville Hotline, presented by BlueFrame Technology, easy for me to say, is Lucia Robinson-Griggs. And, Coach, I blew it right out of the gate, but you can correct me nonetheless. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Vassar, and welcome to the race here.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and it's Lucia.
Lucia, see, I knew it.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get it.
That's all right, game time.
So this job, nothing against Vassar, but I think this job opened up. This wasn't a late opening, if memory serves. I thought Swarthmore hired, and I could be dead wrong on this, but I thought Swarthmore opened up a bit earlier. To be hired in September has got to be nervous. But what drew you to the job, and what made you think this was the right place to go?
Well, just Vassar as a school and as a basketball program. Prior to this, I had been teaching high school math for the better part of 13 years.
Lovely.
And also an assistant at MIT. And so I got to experience this great meshing of two worlds, that high academics can also go along with focused and driven goals on the athletic side. And I've gotten to know Vassar a little bit better over the years, knowing Coach Senior Brown, and we've sort of kept tabs on each other and kept in touch from working camps before. And so knowing just the values that she puts in to her players and her programs on and off the court, I knew that this would be a great situation. Coming into a program that was 21-7, maybe a lot and have its own weights, but I knew that Vassar would be a great fit in terms of how I envisioned being able to build a program and sustain success and have a place where, I could feel at home and that my family could also be a part of.
Yeah, well, first off, you had a long tenure at MIT and became associate head coach there. We had your former boss, as it were. I know more of maybe a partner in coaching is a better way of saying that, on earlier in the season, and they have certainly come a long way. But again, as you pointed out, 21-7 was the campaign last year. This was a program that Candace had been building with a lot of success. Unfortunately, the finish to last year did not go the way they wanted. They ended up losing 5 of their last 7, but got in the NCAA tournament, and then unfortunately Geneseo tripped them up. You must have come into a program then that was kind of itching a little bit to prove that the end of last season was not the team that they were.
Definitely. So we kind of talked a lot about that and the elephant of the room right away, and just really tried to put, as great as some of those accolades were that they had last year, just kind of really put that into a box and say, like, this is a brand new year. We had a new offense, a new defense. They had already had a really great culture in place, and so I was able to come in and sort of put my own spin on that and be able to grow together. As you kind of mentioned in the beginning, definitely some hiccups right away early, but things that I think have helped us grow into where we are right now.
You talk about, I guess the attitude, as it were, of what had happened last season, and again this program that had been built pretty well. How many players were coming back? How many did they lose from last year?
So they lost, I believe, 3 seniors.
Okay.
But in terms of who was coming back, we had 4 starters returning. We had some people off the bench that also were used to contributing off the bench. So I was coming into just a really good situation all around. We had 5 first-year players and a really just solid resume for them that Coach Brown and Coach Maddox left behind.
I should point out, by the way, Coach Brown was hired at the end of July, so September's about the right timing for a job for Vassar to hire and get you in place. What was the first thing you did, by the way, once you were on campus with the position?
Well, a little bit, I would say, like drinking water from the fire hose. There's starting in September, the team, they're already moved in, they're in classes, and just there's 1,000 things you want to do, and it's just really trying to narrow it down. You want to get to know them, you want to learn everything you can know about Vassar, you've got to talk to the recruits, you've got to handle all the administrative stuff, but I think I just tried to really dive into all things Vassar, really keep things open door, which is also difficult with the team because we can't work with them until October 15th, so I can't, organize a bunch of meetings. And so just kind of having an open door policy, if they wanted to pop in, they could, but just really trying to nail down all of that sort of administrative stuff and getting to know about Vassar and getting on the recruits, and just sort of trusting that with that culture in place, they would be doing the right things during that preseason time so that we could hit the ground running together on October 15th.
The gremlins of last season seemed to transition a little bit into the beginning because you guys ended up 6-4 in the opening stanza, the 2019 side, 5-4 before a win over Castleton down there in Naples, Florida. There had to have been some, oh, geez, what are we going through? But you also point out, new offense, new defense. There was a bit of a steep learning curve here. How much did you change?
A decent amount, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they were receptive to that?
Yeah, they were definitely receptive. To put it like the last coach, Coach Lammy, you just had, they were definitely drinking the Kool-Aid and trying to, figure it out. And, as with any sort of new changes, there was a little bit of hesitation. But I think sort of in my work ethic and in my preparation, I think they saw, that I was here, that I understood who they were as players, and that whatever I was putting in offensively or defensively wasn't just because, I saw it in a book and thought it was a great play, that I really thought, it would fit with them. And so they really tried to buy into that, and we watched a lot of film together. We talked about things. I would point out, like, we're running this play because I think it's good for, X, Y, Z. I think we can isolate this person. I think we can showcase this person at any given time.
We were talking to Coach Lammy also about systems that fit what you have, and that even he changed things because of what they were then getting as recruits and understanding that sometimes that doesn't work anymore. We need to change. So you're bringing in a new system. How much did it fit, though, with what you've got? And understanding that you have won 9 of your last 11. So clearly things have started to work. Is it a system that fits what you've got?
I definitely wholeheartedly believe so. I think it was a little slow going at the start.
Okay.
But as I said, sort of talking with them, showing them on film and showing them how I plan to sort of showcase their individual skills, I think really helped with some of that buy-in on the system, and just really trusting, like, okay, if you go set a screen here and if you drive here, this is what's going to be open. And so, like, the more they just kind of went all in and focused on those aspects, it was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, we're good here.
Sure. Again, won 9 of your last 11, the 2 losses at Union and at St. Lawrence, the St. Lawrence game in overtime. You've now split the season with St. Lawrence. But your scores are all over the place. Clarkson and Bard, you put up 90-plus points and held them to 40s. Union was a 48-45 game. St. Lawrence was a 79-77 game after earlier playing them 56-51. Is that because certain teams are dictating things and not necessarily you?
I would say so. I think in the Liberty League, it's just such a great conference. Like, it's so competitive. It's so fun. Coaches really scout so well. And I think just in certain situations, teams do things that really bother us, and it kind of takes us longer than I'd like to figure it out. And sometimes we just kind of get into those modes, and it's difficult to get out of. But one thing I like is, and I keep reminding the team, is that we've faced almost every situation we possibly could so far this year, like the overtimes, the double overtimes, having to battle, when a team comes back, and for us having to be that team that comes roaring back. And even though it hasn't always worked out in our favor, like, every single step has gotten us ready for this big conference push. Yeah, you're definitely a big push, to say the least, right now. You have Ithaca to come. You also have that rematch with Union at home tomorrow, followed by Williams Smith. That's a big weekend. And then you'll finish with the Ithaca Rochester Tech on the road games. So obviously a lot still to play for. I want to talk about your individuals a little bit who will kind of lead the way here. Sophie Nick leading the way at 14 points. Jackie Sennen? Yes, Sennen. Oh, I got one right. 12 points a game. What about the next one? I was going to drag my heels a little bit here. Yes. Pezza. Issa Peasy. Oh, my goodness. No way. Yep. Issa Peasy is an awesome name, but when it's spelled P-E-C-Z-U-H, I don't get Peasy. Yep. That's all right. I called her Pexa until October 15th. That's even better. 12 points a game for Issa Pisa. Did I say that right? Issa Pisa? Peasy. Peasy. See, the UH makes me, oh my goodness. Yeah. If I was calling your games, her name would not look like that on my roster. And Ryan D'Orio, which is pretty cool too, 9 points a game.
Nick, by the way, near double-double. She's a smidge under the 10-rebound mark. So you've got an interesting kind of group here with 4 players, kind of your main assist players, in Senan, Pizzi, Diorio, and we didn't mention Guuli. They're all averaging monster assists. So you've got a lot of different looks, it feels like.
Yeah, and one of our big points of emphasis this season has been the assist game. And I just keep telling them, like, we are at our best when that ball is moving and everybody is getting touches. And, like, one of our goals is we want to have a positive, sometimes it's a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. In some games it's been a 3-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio, which is difficult to get. But just chasing that and really embracing that aspect of, like, we don't need one person to get it done every single night, that we have so many people that can contribute. And we've really embraced that thought.
You are a little bit of a fish out of water. You talked about coming to Vassar, and certainly a very familiar university, but I don't believe you've had anywhere of your collegiate playing or coaching years, if memory serves, outside of, let's call it the Boston Beltway, I-95. Lesley University, MIT, you were at Bentley, is where you attended school. What's it like to be blunt, out of the New England area?
It's been different, but it's been kind of a fun experience. I think being in the New England area for so long, it's like you know who the teams are inside and out, whether you play them or not. You just get a sense, and you know, like, who the big players are, who's going to be in the conversation all the time. And so coming to Vassar and being in the New York area, it's just been interesting, even travel-wise within the Liberty League. And getting to know the teams, the other coaches, getting to know the officiating in the area. It's been fun.
You also seem to be a good fit for Vassar, what they're trying to do academically. Vassar feels like a school that would like to be a Swarthmore but hasn't figured it out yet. And I mean in the sense of all their programs succeeding and consistent, and the student-athlete not being looked upon as something that's a bad thing. You were a double major at Bentley. Insanity, mathematics and psychology while playing Division II basketball, and then you went to Lesley and MIT, and you've got a deep-rooted, from my vantage point, understanding of a true student athlete and the high demands of education. How much early on is it helping you at Vassar?
It's helping me a lot. I think the students here have so many priorities, and it's a little different than an MIT that's a little more engineering focused.
Sure.
Like being at a liberal arts school, we've got people all over the place. We have some players that are studying to be teachers or psychologists, and then others that are pre-med. And so balancing some of those things with the labs that they need to attend, office hours and sessions that they need to go to. At times our practice times can be a little all over the map.
Sure.
But it's just kind of that flexibility piece and really understanding, like, they want to be here. They want to have these goals. They want more banners in the gym. And so just maximizing the time and making it the most efficient as possible on any given day. If we can only go for an hour and a half, then making sure that that is a difficult and focused hour and a half. Or if we get a 2-hour window, just really making sure that they know everything they need to know within that time.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can appreciate it. I went to a liberal arts school myself, though I wasn't nearly as high academically minded as some of these students at Vassar. I wouldn't have gotten into Vassar. They would have taken my application and sent it to the shredder as fast as possible. Let's just be realistic. Again, Union and William Smith coming up this weekend. Ithaca, Rochester Tech on the other side. 4 games left before the conference tournament. I know you're chasing Ithaca. Whether you get there or not is probably irrelevant. You're ranked 6th in the regional rankings. Is there at least a sense now with the team, hey, we've got an opportunity here to still be playing after March 1?
Yeah, there really is. And I think some of that newness, I think they're feeling in a really good place with some of the challenges and things we faced. As you said, like last year, they had this incredible win streak, and then all of a sudden the wheels came off a bit. And we've already faced a little bit of that adversity. And so I think just really reminding them the old cliche of, trust the process, that we have all the tools we need to be successful, and it's just a matter of going out and executing with confidence day in and day out, because especially even in these next 4 games, we can't get ahead of ourselves and can't take anything for granted in this league.
Sure. Totally understand. Appreciate the time. Great insight and understanding of how it's all working. Vassar isn't one of those schools. I think that's on a lot of people's radars when it comes to athletics, and it's fun to talk to you guys when the programs are, well, not even when they're succeeding, but when there's fun stories to tell, and I appreciate the time. As always,
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. As always, we give the coach the final word, though. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who may be tuned in?
One more cliche for you.
Okay.
Just get out there and enjoy the journey. I think really being open-minded and having a growth mindset and bringing that presence of mind to everything that you do is the most important piece.
It may sound like a cliche, but that's good advice. I appreciate that one. Thanks for the time. Good luck the rest of the way. Enjoy it, and we'll look forward to talking to you somewhere down the road with this program.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Coach Robinson Griggs joining us here on the show. Again, the team is won 9 of their last 11. Got 4 games left. Big one against Union. They'd love to avenge that loss to Union earlier in the season. And William Smith this weekend. Ithaca and Rochester Tech, as we mentioned, on the other next weekend. And then they're all chasing Ithaca, though they're only a game back. It's possible. We'll see what happens. Real fun to chat there with Coach. Of course, she was at MIT. If you were on this, listen to the show often, you'll know one of our early WBCA Center Court segments was with their coach and talk about fundraising. We're going to take another look at fundraising from a different point of view. Wisconsin Eau Claire women's basketball coach Tanya Englund will join us on the other side of the break, talk about their fast break program and why it's been so successful. Our hope is maybe you as a coach or you as a program or you somewhere can take some ideas from these segments to help you as well. We'll find out more from Coach Englund when we come back. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. More Hoopsville after this.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
It's on us. It's on all of us. And it's time to act now.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
It starts right when you hit the court. You imagine your finest moment. The game-winning shot that gets you to the dance, a monster dunk or no-look pass, and cutting down the net. Sports lets us dream of our own success and prepare us for our finest moments on and off the court.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Being a part of the different activities and organizations that I've been a part of, I'm actually able to see myself where I'm like, hey, I actually can make a change. I'm one person that can make a difference.
Division III has helped me to develop teamwork skills, critical thinking skills, time management skills.
It's not just about basketball, or it's not just about school. It's about developing yourself as a person altogether.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go into personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, as we continue to roll along. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can also email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. If I ever say d3hoops.com, ignore me. I just can't get the old way out of my head. Of course, we're also on Facebook where we're simulcasting the show. We're back on YouTube simulcasting as well. But I want to thank our partners at BlueFrame Technology for their help as well. All right, so WBCA Center Court, unfortunately, didn't have one last week, but that's because when I jumble up my schedule, it doesn't necessarily fit with everybody else's, which is why Monday's show might be interesting. Anyway, earlier in the season, we talked about fundraising and how it's so important, especially in Division III, because in Division III, sometimes you got to raise your own money to offset or to supplement is probably a better way of saying it, the school's budget so that you can do more for your program. There's only so much money in Division III, right? Well, I want to continue that conversation, as it were, talking about fundraising and understanding it and what works and what doesn't work is probably the best way of saying that. I was going to have the live picture, but it doesn't seem to want to work. But we'll get it to get going here in just a minute. I'm just going to stall while I look for the shot because I know it's there. There it is. No, it doesn't want to work. We'll get it. Don't worry. Joining me on Skype, and don't worry, you'll see her in a moment. Joining us on Skype. Oh, there she is, popped up. Tanya Englund from Wisconsin Eau Claire joins us in the WBCA Center Court segment. A little bit of a delay there. Coach, thanks for taking the time, and congratulations first and foremost. We'll talk about the season because you guys are having a great season, but thanks for taking the time to talk about this a little bit. Fundraising's kind of a little bit in your heart, is it not?
It is. It's something that I'm really passionate about, and I have kind of a real interesting playing background in that I played Division I and I also played Division III, and so I saw both sides of the experience. And when I came to the Division III level, I really wanted to work hard for those things that you were talking about so that we could afford my athletes the very best so that they could excel.
And that's the thing is, and of course you're at a state school, so the funding can be quirky. It's a state school, so you know what the funding's going to be, but it can be up and down quite a bit. You really... There's almost not a pressure, but there's a thought that if we fundraise, we can at least stabilize. Is that a fair way of saying that?
Well, I actually have to say here at UW Eau Claire, we are very blessed to have tremendous support from our university. Our players do not have any fees that they pay or anything to play, but my fundraising goes above and beyond to make sure that we can travel. That is a part of their basketball experience. They can see the country. I look back on my experience as a player and the traveling and seeing the different parts of the country. I only did that mostly because of playing. And so we do those extra fundraising events so that we can help our players travel and also provide them the very best in our equipment and in their experiences.
Yeah, I think I've seen you possibly around the country. May have seen you somewhere.
A little bit, yeah.
Just in Vegas or something, some cool place.
Vegas, yep. I think in the last 4 years we've been to Vegas, we've been to Dallas, we've been to Nashville, and we were in Florida this year. Fully fundraised trips for my players where all they have to do is to bring spending money. And because this is a very high academic school, my players have above a 3.5 GPA. I do the fundraising, and they do great in school, and they give back to their community. And that's something that I'm passionate about. That's my job. Their job is to be great student athletes. The
fact that you give back to the community is one of those things I just love in Division III in general. But let's talk about the program that you use in terms of fundraising. This is I don't know if it's unique's the right word, but I'm fascinated by it. It's called Fast Break. Can you give us a little bit more of an understanding what that is? Because it's not just some fundraising program that you're using to raise money at Eau Claire. It's bigger than that.
It is. It's become bigger and bigger every year. It's in its 12th year now. Started completely grassroots from a conversation I had with my advisory committee that I put together and the president of our foundation here, Kim Wei. We have such tremendous backing and fan support. You can see it behind me in the picture that's behind my desk. That we felt that it was not only fundraising, but friend-raising, and that we wanted to bring our community closer together, and through that we would be able to fundraise for our players. We have over 175 members as a part of our organization. They all are on board as members. But through that, they also come to members-only events after our game's over where our players take the microphone. They speak about their experiences. And so through that, we have grown our basketball community closer and closer to become a closer family. And I believe one of the huge things that you do in fundraising is that you make sure that your donors know how they're making an experience in the program, where their money is going, and how that is elevating what you're doing. And so we do a great job, I think, as a staff of making sure that they understand how we use that revenue, what we do with it, and how it's benefiting our student athletes within the Division III rules.
So that's the thing, is you're almost inviting the community to invest in the program, in the student athlete. The student really is probably a better way of saying that, so that they feel like they're helping with that experience. That feels a little bit more unique. I mean, we can go out there and fundraise. We can go out there and find advertisers, for example, or sponsors, but that's not necessarily a relationship. This feels more like almost like a stock and bond type thing. You're literally investing. I don't know what they're getting back necessarily outside of being happy with what they do, but is that a fair way of saying it?
It is a fair way of saying it, and I think they do get a lot of return from that, because through our fast break receptions after our games are over, they are a part of a family. They know the person that they're sitting next to at the games. And you can come to our games, and the picture behind me shows you we have parents that are in our fast break, but we also have professors. We have alumni. Wow. We have season ticket holders. We have people across the country that are invested in our program, and they tune in to watch us and to feel a part of that. And that was my goal when I started this, was that you've hit it right on the head. If we win a championship this year, they've invested in that championship because they are giving our players opportunities to focus on school while I do the fundraising.
That's amazing. Again, you talk about the experience you had as a D1 student athlete and getting to see the country, and then coming to D3 and understanding it's a little bit of a smaller world, as it were, in sense of traveling. This hybrid, I've seen a lot of schools do it, but not with this technique. Is this a technique that can work at other places, or is it that you found a niche at Eau Claire and it's working there and it may be challenging elsewhere?
No, I really believe that this can work in a lot of different situations. I will tell you, so much of it is acknowledging your donors. I write personal thank you notes, timely personal thank you notes to every one of our donors. I know the people that are in our Fast Break organization. I know the people that come to our games. So much of fundraising is to show your gratitude. My players who are tuned in tonight, they understand what Fast Break has done for our program through the years. That's why they join as alums as they graduate and give back to the program. And so it's through the generations. But I will tell you, what I found from fundraising is so much of it is that it is personal, and that you make sure that your donors understand the difference that they're making in your players' lives.
By the way, I'm looking at the PDF that you guys have online, and it's fascinating. Do you have, you mentioned around the country you have people, and I can imagine alums move, but do you have anybody who's involved who's not necessarily associated with Eau Claire? Do you get investment from those who just want to see those student athletes have good experiences?
I do. I have people who hear through the grapevine about our organization. They happen to see us maybe play on the road. They like what we do on the court. Maybe they drop me an email. I give them the information about our program. I will tell you, anybody who invests in our program, I make an automatic member of our Fast Break program automatically. Okay. And everything goes through our foundation on campus. All of the money is through our foundation, but the club itself, I have all of those names, and then they get newsletters, they get updates from us. As soon as you asked me to be on this program, every single one of our Fast Break members received an invite to listen tonight so that they can see we are doing something that's really unique and special.
Wait, hold on. There's pressure? I mean, there's people.
There's pressure. You have people out there. You've got a lot of blue gold people watching tonight. Yes.
Great. I just thought the AD would be putting pressure on me. I know him well. He's a good man, but now you've added this other level.
I have to say, too, a personal thank you to Dan Schumacher and to our Chancellor, Jim Schmidt, because they have this big vision of what we do here at UW-Eau Claire, and they trust me to do this Fast Break vision that I've had and are very super supportive of it as well.
Side note, Dan and I have had some wonderful conversations. I completely agree with your point of view on that. And obviously you're a lot closer to it. And by the way, in Vegas, we kind of saw that take shape where you guys, this is going to be a corny way of saying it, wined and dined your alums or benefactors. But in reality, you thanked them because they also made an effort to come out and support the student athletes there in Vegas.
You saw it. We had professors that made that trip out to Las Vegas. This year when we were in Florida, we had close to 100 people that traveled with us. Wow. And again, this is completely grassroots. I do this on my own. I have my longtime assistant, Coach Peg Johnson, who helps me with some of our informational things. And we have our foundation who takes care of all the money investment. But it is one person doing this. And it is a 175-member booster club. We've raised over $250,000 in the 12 years that we've been in existence.
That's incredible.
So it's amazing, but it is, I think, goes back to it's our donors and it's people coming out on the road and supporting us, and my players also being genuinely appreciative of the unique things that we have here.
Who's coaching in the meantime?
I do that too.
What?
Yep, and absolutely love it. And I will tell you, my background, I played Division I for 2 years at Wyoming, and then I transferred to St. Thomas. We won the national championship the year that I transferred there. One thing that I am passionate about at Division III that I love as a coach is that I do get the opportunity to do everything. I wouldn't do well, I think, as a person that was just maybe in charge of running camps.
Sure.
That's not I like to have my fingers in everything, and I want everything to be excellent. And so this is really unique and special to me that I have an opportunity to kind of brand this booster club.
To be blunt, I know a ton of coaches who do camps. There's only so many camps that people can go to, get a good experience, and maybe be a fundraiser for an organization. I almost feel like some coaches have got to start thinking outside the box. This is taking a D1 concept of a booster club, and we know about D1 boosters. That's a different conversation.
Yes.
And bringing it Division III within the rules of Division III. Do you get a lot of calls from others saying, hey, I want to start this kind of program myself?
No, you're the first one that's actually invited me to talk about it. That's why I was pretty excited about it. I mean, definitely within the rules of Division III, it does have a different, unique brand to it, and that's what I like. I was a part of it. Wyoming, we had a great booster club there. Different type of feel to it. At the Division III level, you have more of a friend raising atmosphere, and our booster club socials after the games are over, they're just tremendous. I have players that take the microphone and speak about their experiences. I have alum come back and speak about what the Fast Break Club did for their experience. It's just passed through generations, and it was a vision that we had when we started. I don't know that we ever thought it would get this big. But a lot of my advisory club members are watching tonight, too, and they really got behind me and helped me to pull this together.
We're trying to do fundraising on this show, and I think I've taken the completely wrong tact. I clearly need to come up with a booster club. That's what I need. Let
me know if I can help.
Well, I'll call you. Don't worry.
Okay.
Let's talk about the team real quick, because I want to get back to you and your background in a bit, but I want to talk about the team before we lose track of it. 15-7 on the season, and kind of with the theme of the night, rough start to the season. Won your first game, lost your next 3, lost 4 of the first 6, lost 5 of the first 8, I think. I could be doing my math wrong again. No, it's 8. Then it clicked. what clicked, because now you're sitting in the standings a game behind Whitewater with, oh, by the way, they're coming up, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what clicked with this team kind of around Christmas?
It's a long story short, but I'll tell you that we had what we felt was a championship team last year.
Yeah.
We had 2 ACLs, one to our leading scorer, 2 broken hands, 4 concussions. It was like nothing I'd ever gone through as a coach in my 26 years. It was a championship season that we thought was just really, really tough on us because of all the things that our players went through. Coming back this year, if you look at the beginning of this schedule, you'll see that Loris is on there, who you're talking to next.
Yes.
Wartburg, Bethel. I lined up what is one of the best schedules that we could have potentially lined up. And we were still coming back and trying to get ourselves to the point where we were before we got hurt, and also bringing in some new faces. It took us a while, and it took us longer than I thought it would take, to be honest with you. But I've done this a long time, and my players are listening tonight, and I'll tell you, they're like daughters, they're family. We've gone through so much, and I told them in my playing experience, you go through things to win a championship. And we did last year. We went through all the ups and downs, and it's made us better this year. And even though we lost to the Wartburgs and the Lorises and the Bethels, who I have so much respect for, it is the reason why we're in the hunt right now in the WIC, is because we played the kind of schedule that we did. And I wholeheartedly believe in that. I hope our strength of schedule will pay off at the end of the year as well.
If your players are listening, tell them to close their ears, or players, close your ears for about 15 seconds here, because I'm going to remind everybody, last year it felt like you guys hit a wall due to those injuries, losing 9 straight to finish 11 or 10 of your last, again, can't do math, and I'm usually a math guy, 10 of your last 12, I think it was, 13. Yeah, I mean, I know there were high expectations. That's got to be tough to deal with in the off season. And then to come in and still not get out to the start you wanted. And yes, tough schedule. Don't disagree with that. But to get out to that start and not see the success, there had to be some tough moments in the locker rooms.
You know, to be honest with you, there may have been, I think, some tough moments from the outside looking in on, people trying to figure out why we weren't there yet. But to be honest with you, in the locker room, we just kept on going back to work. That's the kind of coach I am, and I have complete faith in this team, and I tell them all the time, I'll never give up, we'll never sit down, and that's what we've done, is we've just continued to try to figure it out, and that's why I have a feeling about this team. I believe in them. We've gone through what we have to win a championship. My leading scorer, Hallie Hebner, was the player of the year in the WIC last year. She's back this year. She's having a phenomenal year, and this year she has the help that she needs. Anna Grasskamp, who was our leading scorer last year in the ACL, is back and is now playing to the grass, is her nickname, standard. And it's pretty exciting to see this team come together. And I will tell you, playing Whitewater on Saturday in Zorn Arena at home, it's what I came to Eau Claire for. Those games in Zorn Arena, to win a conference championship, to be in the hunt, there's nothing like it. And I've been throughout the country. I've been in a lot of gyms. Zorn Arena, and our Eau Claire crowd is really special.
Yeah, we should point out, big game coming up at home. Win that, split the season, tied in the conference race with 2 more to go, Platteville and La Crosse, who's La Crosse being right behind you in this race. This WIAC race is fascinating. I know Whitewater's the big game. How do you see that one matching up? How do you see it? How do you see it playing out? We should remind everybody at the beginning of January is a 67-41 loss at their place. But how do you think it shakes out this time around?
I think a high respect for Whitewater and their staff. They do a great job. It's interesting. Carrie would probably tell you the same thing. It seems like we've always played well in Zorn Arena against Whitewater, and they've always played well at Whitewater when we go there. And I think we're a different team than we were the first time that we played them. It's been a long time. But it really is, I think, will tell us where we're at. I've been telling people that this team is one of the best teams. If you're at the top 2 in the WIAC, I think you're one of the best teams in the country. We've seen the Wartburgs, we've seen the Lorises, we've seen the Bethels. We just weren't there yet the first time that we played them. And so we're blessed with this schedule to have it the way it is, and for us to have this game in Zorn on Saturday.
Before I let you go, you were telling me about the coaches you played under and the uniqueness, especially in Division III. Can you just kind of give everybody a sense of who you basically learned the game from?
Absolutely. If you can follow this, I played for Ruth Sin, who is the current St. Thomas coach, actually at Hill Murray High School. A tremendous mentor, one of my very best friends to this day. Ruth played at St. Thomas as well.
Right.
When I graduated from Hill Murray, I got a Division I scholarship to the University of Wyoming. Played for Chad Lavin, who is also a close personal friend who went on to win a national championship at South Dakota. I played for him for 2 years, a little bit too far away from home for me out in Laramie, Wyoming. I decided to transfer back to St. Thomas. I'm from St. Paul originally. Transferred there in 91. We won the national championship the year I transferred to St. Thomas. It's the only national championship in the history of the women's basketball program over there. Shout out to my teammates. I played for Ted Reverso at St. Thomas, who is now the Augsburg coach, and a very close friend of mine as well. We scrimmaged this year. And then my mentor during the summers growing up when I went into coaching was Bob Erdman, who is one of the all-time winningest coaches in the state of Minnesota for college men. He was at Gustavus for years. So I look back on my playing career, and I was truly blessed to play for great coaches who taught that Division III offers something that's very unique and special. And I found a home when I transferred to St. Thomas. That's why I'm so passionate about Division III athletics.
To put you on the spot a little bit, the goings-on with St. Thomas and the MIAC and where their future may be, you got to have some mixed thoughts on that, I'm sure.
I will tell you that national championship banner that hangs at St. Thomas for women's basketball, we won the national championship game by 18 points. Lori Trow, who was my the two of us were All-Americans on that team. Lori is the head coach at Gustavus now. It was a special and very unique experience. We beat a great Donna Newberry team in the national championship game. And looking back on my experience at St. Thomas, it's a phenomenal place. And I just want what's best for the institution.
Sure.
I look back on the MIC, and I have such fond memories of the MIC. It's just like the WIC in that you have those matchups and you have the history and those types of things. And that's what I'm so fond of. But I wish them the best, and I want to have them the very best too. So whatever is best for them, I'm on board for that as an alum. Absolutely.
Sure. Makes total sense. I appreciate the thought on that. Again, big game going, so we'll let you go. I figure you also have some fundraising calls to make or at least receive by the end of this. I assume anybody who's interested, if you have time, they're more than welcome to contact you if they're interested in learning more about this.
I would love for them to contact me. And I taught the coaching minor here for years at UW-Eau Claire, and I'm passionate about teaching and mentoring and passing it on. And so if there are coaches that are out there that want more information on what we do, I would be happy to share it with them.
I can hear the passion in your voice, Coach. It's so fun to talk to you about it. We have a tradition on the show. We always leave the last word to the guest. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
Absolutely. I would give everybody the advice that one of my favorite books is called Make the Big Time Where You're At. I read it as a player, and I wholeheartedly believe that your approach and where you're at, that you make that a championship experience in your job and how you coach. If you're coaching grade school, if you're coaching high school, my players that are out there listening, I say to them all the time, what's your why? Whatever your why is, you do it passionately every single day. And that's the beauty of it, Division III, is that we make it the big time where we're at.
Well done. You're doing great. Congratulations. I love this Fast Break Club. Appreciate the time, the extra time, really, as I look at the clock. And take care. Good luck against Whitewater. Good luck the rest of the season. I'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Tanya Englund joining us from Wisconsin-Eau Claire. Again, big game against Whitewater and then Platteville Lacrosse. But that Fast Break Club, fascinating. If you want more information, she said go ahead and contact her. I don't know where she's going to have time. She's got a game, and she's got to write those thank you notes. I'm not a huge thank you note guy, if my mom's listening. Sorry. That one didn't rub off very well. One of my regrets, but I'm impressed that she does it for all of those those who donate to the program. We'll take another break. When we come back, stay with the women's basketball theme and the team that she mentioned earlier, ranked 10th in the country, Loras, who's sitting on top of the West Region rankings in the first ones out. We'll talk to them about the season there and why no one's talking about, well, not no one, but why we're not talking about Wartburg in the ARC. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. More Hoopsville after this.
College has given me the flexibility to pursue my passions and my interests, and I've recreated my identity for myself aside from just being an athlete.
My greatest personal discovery has been that I am capable of doing things that I didn't know I was capable of doing.
To be able to study what I wanted to and continue to play the sport I love, all of those things came together very nicely in one package in Division III.
Cheer for the stumbles, the he shoulda had that's, and the tears that linger. For in those moments, greatness lies. There, you will find the provoked, the determined, the unified. It's in those moments that champions are born.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
Being a part of the different activities and organizations that I've been a part of, I'm actually able to see myself where I'm like, hey, I actually can make a change. I'm one person that can make a difference.
Division III has helped me to develop teamwork skills, critical thinking skills, time management skills.
It's not just about basketball, or it's not just about school, it's about developing yourself as a person altogether.
It's on us. It's on all of us. And it's time to act now.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
I coined my definition of success in 1934. My definition of success is peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to do the best of which you're capable. It's like reputation and character. Reputation is what others perceive you to be. Character is what you are.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, as we cruise along here. Don't forget, coming up, we'll talk to Matt Snyder. He's our SOS guru, as it were, at least for men's basketball. Women's basketball, it's a little easier to figure out the math for the SOS, but Matt figures it out on the men's side. We're going to talk to him about some of the quirks about it, but also to get you to understand it better. So, yes, show going a little bit longer. All right, women's basketball, continuing this kind of crazy theme, not just theme, but we have these great connections with programs. Our Vassar coach was at MIT. The MIT was about fundraising. We had Eau Claire on. They had to do with fundraising as well, learning more about how you can fundraise for your program. Of course, Eau Claire played Loris earlier in the season, and now I'm having Loris on. It's a crazy little road we travel on sometimes. Loris women's basketball, 21-2, probably one of the least talked about teams in the top 10 as they enter the top 10 this week. They were lone loss to Luther, interestingly enough, 80-77. I shouldn't say lone. They got swept by Luther is what I was trying to say. 76-66 in their second game. So Luther has figured them out, but nobody else has, and they've got a big game coming up next week against Wartburg. They actually have this weekend off. Joining us on the BlueFrame Technology Hoopsville Hotline, the head coach of Loris. It is Justin Heinzen. And, Coach, thanks for taking the time to join us. Yeah, absolutely. I just realized our mic was muted, maybe just when I brought the graphic up, hopefully not for the whole segment. If it was muted, people will start yelling at me. I know they will. They didn't miss anything exciting except for the fact that you guys are 21-2 on the season, 12-2 in conference. Interesting enough, Luther has your number. They've beaten you twice now, 80-77, 76-66. Have you asked for the MIAC treatment and have Luther removed from the conference?
No, they're good, and there's a couple teams in our league that are super senior heavy and talented enough, and they're one of them, and they certainly got us twice.
Yeah, interesting enough, they got you twice, but nobody else has. Is this
Right.
one of those occasions where it comes down to matchups, and sometimes the matchups just don't work in your favor no matter what?
Yeah, it is a matchup thing, no question. And they've exposed some things that other teams haven't, just with some of their physicality. So, learning process, right?
Yeah, well, sure. You're also ranked, by the way, top of the West Region rankings. That had to be, I mean, listen, being in the top 10 and the top 25 at D3 Hoops, I'm sure is a feather in the cap. But to be on top of the rankings as well, knowing what their impact is for the postseason, that had to feel pretty good.
Yeah, we certainly. I was on the rack for a while and kind of know the process. I thought we had a chance. And with Bethel dropping one last week, I thought that was real. So we're happy where we're at. Obviously, there's work to be done.
Sure.
But to celebrate that is certainly no small feat, especially with what I feel is a jam-packed West region.
Yeah, the West region is fascinating this year. You've got a competitive MIAC with 4 teams in there that all season have been really good. You guys have made the ARC race a little bit more fascinating because we've all had our eyes on Wartburg. Now you guys have entered the fray. Well, not entered the fray, but made it certainly a little bit more daunting. And as we mentioned, Luther, while 12-9 on the season, has been really good in conference play. The SCIAC, I think, is underrated right now. Of course, we all know how the Northwest Conference has played out. To some degree, to be on top of the fray in the West region is saying something.
Yeah, and Luther got us twice, but we had a couple real close games against some of the heavy hitters, and we're lucky enough to squeak away with those. Eau Claire was one of them, and Wartburg and Simpson games are real tight as well. So we've won some close ones that you need to win. I think you need to be a little bit lucky as well, and we'll take some of that too.
Yeah, sure. Well, luck can go a long way sometimes. This team was 22-6 last season, 14-2 in conference play. But again, it felt like Wartburg was the one that overshadowed everybody. You guys were right behind them, but everybody talked about how good, Wartburg was. The season before, though, 2 back-to-back 17-10 seasons. Has this been building? Did you know you got a recruiting class or a couple of classes together there that this kind of success was building for a couple of years?
Yeah, we knew we felt good coming into this year. Prior to that, you just learn a bunch of stuff about your teams, kind of through your teams, and I thought last year's group just paved the way in a different leadership and culture capacity than teams before. Not that they were wrong, because you can do leadership 1,000 different ways, but I think we found a pretty good blueprint with that, and you add some talent and now some experience to it, and that's a big piece. You've got
when I look at the roster, you've got a handful of seniors.
Yep.
You've got a lot of freshmen.
We do.
And you've got a good chunk of juniors and sophomores. So I assume the seniors are leading the way, but where is the heart and soul of this team? Is this still a young team per se, or is it an upper-class team?
Well, we start 3 seniors and 2 juniors, and that's the way it was last year too. In a way, we very much play a team game and don't talk a ton about. We talk a lot about roles and where we should be playing to our strengths and things like that. But we really have a team that doesn't care who scores, and I think that's helped overall. When you lose some dynamite players year after year, you wonder who's going to step up, but people do, and we've had the same thing this past year. So I think it's a formula that's worked for us. Not that it's right, but it's been great for us.
You're in your 13th season, I believe, at Loras?
It is.
This program's, I don't want to say come a long way. That's a horrible way of saying it. But you guys have kind of been we're very typical above 500, but not like world-breaking seasons. You've been a steady program, I guess it is. Is it feel different to be kind of at the top in a top 10 ranking and a number 1 regional ranking? Is this a different experience, or is this something you guys have doesn't feel different? I don't know how to ask that anyway.
No, I got it. It's something we're very transparent about on our team. We had really, really high expectations going into this year, and had some experiences along the way last year that I thought might have prepared us for a pretty good run. Obviously, all that's got to come together. There's a lot that goes into it, but we have come a long way. My first year here, we had 8 players on our team, and I still feel bad for that first class because I was a 25-year-old head coach. But we've learned a lot, and learned a lot through each other, I think, is the most important part. And we really sat down at the end of last year knowing kind of what we had, and still tried to learn some better ways to do things, and just constantly changing.
You were still 17-9 that year, 9-7 in the conference, so it might have been only 8 players, but you got the most out of them.
It's a great story I'll have to tell you one time.
All right. Well, you don't want to tell it now? Or is it one of those lengthy stories?
Sure.
You can tell it. Go for it.
I got the job in July as an assistant coach. Came from Lakeland. And October 1st, our head coach left for a Division I job. She's now the head coach at Dayton.
Oh, she's successful, you're saying?
Yeah, she's all right. So it was October 1st, and we're 2 weeks away from season starting, so they couldn't really hire anybody else in that short of time span. So we started the year 10-0.
Wow.
And they gave me the job after that, the interim basis. And then we lost 6 in a row.
So you pulled the wool over their eyes, and then they realized.
No more pressure, and we just blew it. No. It was a fun ride with that crew, and some really loyal alumni yet. I appreciate that crew. You learn a lot by doing, and nobody writes the book on that first go-around. And I just learned a lot through them.
That fits the "oh, by the way" category. So
Yeah,
coaches
right.
left, and oh, by the way, you're interim. Good luck.
Right.
You got practice in 2 weeks, and we wish you all the best. So what should we expect from this team? You're led by Mackenzie Kramer with 14 points a game, and we should point out you got 4 players in double figures. Mackenzie Kramer's at 14.5. Also at 14.5 is Marissa Schroeder. Courtney Schooner is at 13.5, and Carrie Fitzpatrick at nearly 12 points a game. And I want to thank all of them for having names I can say tonight. And I don't want to forget Riley Eckert. She's at 9 points a game. What is it about that group, at least from that unit of scoring? When I see things like this, I feel repetitive on the show, but when I see a lot of double-figure players, and most of them basically your starting unit, it tells me defensively you can't key on 1 or 2 people. You have to watch out for everybody. Is that fair? Is that a good representation?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And Riley's been she was an all-conference performer last year.
Mm-hmm.
She's really come on lately. Last 5 or so games has played at that level. And we really feel like pick your poison. And they do a really good job with that. They don't. I really believe that they don't care who scores it and whose number gets called in any certain game. I think Mackenzie was going into last night our 3rd leading scorer. So, and that that'll continue to shuffle, I believe, too.
That tells us the story of those 4, and you mentioned Riley making it 5. I look at the roster, and you go deep in most games. It looks like, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in most games you're going to be willing to go deep into the bench, if not more. Is there other parts of this team that doesn't jump out of box scores that would help us understand how good the Dewhawks are?
Yeah, so we sat down at the end of last year, and we had one of the better offenses in the country numbers-wise, and all of that returning basically, minus a few pieces, and really wanted to do something with more possessions for us. So to credit of a part-time assistant coach that works full-time in a huge capacity for us, Eric Gruber, we brought on, and he was kind of a press guru, and so now we run and jump all over the place, and we like our depth. I don't know if statistically it's going to jump out off the page with a bunch more people averaging double figures, but they do a really good job in their roles. They provide awesome stability, and we thought that was the case preseason-wise, and that has been the case all season long. Now, when their number is called, they can certainly step up and do it, and we've had a bunch of players that have had great games individually, but they still know, who our big guns are, and they fill that role really, really well. So defensively is where it starts for sure, and we force a bunch of turnovers and try to play fast just so our offense can get more possessions.
Wartburg ahead. That's obviously,
Yeah.
though, in a week's time. You're not playing them till Wednesday. You kind of have the weekend off to relax, rest up some wounds, as it were, and get ready for that game. There's some trepidation, I'm sure, with that. Gets everybody out of the sequence, as it were, or the routine. But you've got that big game coming up on Wednesday. You got them at their place by, 4 last time, 82-78. How do you make sure they don't do the same to you?
I'm going to have to ask my assistant. I wasn't at that Wartburg game, so my assistant Britt took it over
I
and
missed
knocked
that.
them out.
So you're not going to go to Wednesd's game then?
That's right.
I got you.
The odds are better. We're and she did a great job in that game. It's really hard to watch on computer, but she knocked it out. And part of that is
did the computer survive? By the way, it wasn't broken.
I was alone for sure, but it was okay.
Okay. Anyway, you were saying.
We got close in the conference championship last year to them, and I feel like prior to that they had such a swagger, and they still do. They're unbelievable. That nobody really knew they could get them, and just by sniffing that closely a year ago, I think we had a little bit more confidence, and now knocking them off, it doesn't guarantee anything for Wednesday, obviously, but at least gives us a little more hope that it can happen, and that we're playing a team that's human.
I can understand
and they're
that.
still going to be really, really good, right? But it gives us confidence, and that's a huge thing going into that game. And, to try to play loose and free is a big deal with our team, and that's how we're going to operate.
And then obviously after that, you got one more game against Nebraska Wesleyan. I'm going to ask this. I know you're not looking technically past a Wartburg game, but do you also have to be concerned? Some people may not believe this, but worried about the trap of it all. Of you got the Wartburg game, and then Nebraska Wesleyan. Oh, okay, whatever. We can beat them. Do you have to worry about that on the backside?
On paper, maybe. We talked pretty extensively about regional rankings and the importance of that one game, right? And I think we were in a dogfight with Augsburg a year ago on that last spot, I thought. And we're really transparent with our team on how important this one game is, regardless of who we're playing. And we're old enough, I think, that to understand that. And so I'm not too worried about a trap. We're going to prepare for it just like we would Wartburg, and go in with the same expectations.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. I appreciate the time. A fascinating team, fascinating season. You guys have played really well. You played some good opponents, too. WashU, who may not be having their prototypical season, but they're always tough.
Mm-hmm.
Oshkosh, Eau Claire, obviously the conference games, including Wartburg. You've had an interesting season. And a trip to San Juan. That must have been an interesting trip to Puerto Rico. Quickly, before we let you go, what was it like to be on the island?
It was really fun. It was our seniors' idea, so we did it, and it was a trip of a lifetime, right? And you play outside in a way, so it's an open air arena.
Yes.
We found out quickly that you just can't shoot it the same way. So luckily, we had some length and a pretty good zone that weekend to hold off some teams, but. Shooting percentages are way down for the entire tournament.
I'm going to ask the stupid question here. Was it windy?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious if it was abnormally windy or just windy in general, or was it that just air circulating in general was throwing things off? That's what I was kind of curious about.
Oh, yeah. It was probably more air than just wind.
Okay.
It was elevated enough, but
still interesting.
It's still different. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I appreciate the time. Like I said, good luck the rest of the way. Good luck against Wartburg. I know I'll tune in on Wednesday. I won't do it. I think my computer will survive it, and we'll look to see if you're even on the sideline. Superstitions.
Yeah, right.
You might just say forget it.
Depending on halftime, right?
Right. Even better. I'm not walking out there. I've ruined this. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who may be tuned in?
Yeah. Well, thank you. My first year, I'm not sure D3 Hoops existed, or I didn't know about it, because I'm sure you guys did. But after that, I think for 12 years, I've caught every episode in the background of watching film or something like that. I know you got a family, too, and another job as well. So it's a crazy investment that you and your team make, and I appreciate it, and we all do.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think you probably heard my son come in and say goodnight to me.
I did. It was nice.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens with a live mic in the background, right? He's fascinated with the show. Someday you'll see him. But I appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words.
For sure.
Good luck the rest of the way, as I said, and we look forward to talking about the team and to you soon down the road.
All right. Very much.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dave.
Take care. Here's Justin Heinzen, head coach of the number 10 ranked Loris Dewhawks. By the way, I just got a text message saying the donate buttons were not working on our screen. I wish people throw a flag on me. Let me know. I will fix those hopefully in the interim here. Probably me being lazy on copying, pasting, probably screwed everything up. So I will try and fix that. In the meantime, we'll take another break. When we come back, we will talk strength of schedule numbers, primarily on the men's side, but we'll also give you an insight of how they work on the women's side, but really why it's different on the men's side. Is it a number being used properly in the sense of when you talk SOS, do you understand what it really means? What are quirks about it? And is it right? Matt Snyder will join us. He's the guru on that math, and Calvin grad. We'll talk to him about it all coming up. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. More Hoopsville after this.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III. I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
I just wanted to get good grades and
to do well, but it also made me realize that I have a lot of career goals.
You're there to get a full college experience, not only participate in your sport, but participate in things outside of that, and it's all about growing as a person.
My coaches have helped me with figuring out who I really am. Their lives are dedicated for us to succeed.
I just wanted to get good grades and to do well, but it also made me realize that I have a lot of career goals.
You're there to get a full college experience, not only participate in your sport, but participate in things outside of that, and it's all about growing as a person.
My coaches have helped me with figuring out who I really am. Their lives are dedicated for us to succeed.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, as we continue on a show that we were expecting to go long versus me just making it go long because I was talking. If you got questions for us, and you might in this next segment, you can tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us on Facebook, where we're simulcasting the show, facebook.com/Hoopsville. It is, as I said, being simulcast there. You can join us on YouTube, by the way, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. We're back up and streaming there thanks to, I'll be nice and just say somebody reported a violation of copyright with us, which was completely erroneous, and they apologized, and, well, it didn't get us back our 2 weeks. Anyway, there you go. You can also email us, hoopsville at d3sports.com. Lots of ways to contact us. Hope you'll figure out how to do it and chat with us. All right, so strength of schedule. It is one of those parts of the criteria that I think a lot of us end up hanging our hats on, along with win-loss percentage, because it's an easy number that we see in front of us. We don't have to do research on who a team faced, what their head-to-heads were, what their comparables were, all of that jazz. It's also a number, I think, that isn't fully appreciated and isn't fully understood. And I think some people think that that SOS is somehow like an RPI, that it represents a strength of how good a team is. It does not. But how does it math out? The women do it one way. The men do it slightly different, and that's true across Division III. Lots of different groups do this differently. So I figured, you know what? I got to get Matt Snyder on the show to talk about this. He's the guru who does the math on the men's side that we at D3Hoops.com link to. We don't have to link to him for women because it's easy math, and our system can do it. It's harder math on the men's side. So joining us on the BlueFrame Technology Hoopsville Hotline via Skype, it is the aforementioned Matt Snyder. Sir, I tip my hat. Welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time, and how are you? I appreciate it. I also like the headset. It's a great look. All right, let's start from the basics of this. The SOS takes the opponent's winning percentage, meaning whoever the team played, their opponent's winning percentage, and it multiplies that, or it adds that into the opponent's winning percentage, meaning whoever your opponent has played. And there's a weight of basically 2/3 of it on the opponent, on your direct opponents, and a third on the other side. Is that a fair way, just in that central part of that, is that a fair way of trying to figure out a team's schedule strength? I know it's not an RPI or anything like that, but it's trying to explain to us how a team did against its schedule. So when we look at a team that's 20-2, we can go, well, it's 22 against a really easy schedule or medium schedule or hard schedule. Is there a number that we can go off and go, okay, I understand that if they're above or around that area, they're X. They're above or around that area, they're Y. Does that make sense? Are there concrete numbers there? Yeah, I kind of remember that season. Amazingly, we're still talking about it. And I think they proved themselves in their game against Worcester that they were a pretty darn good team. That said, to me, and tell me why I'm seeing this, to me it feels like the numbers have been increasing. We're seeing more teams in the high 500s and close and even over 600 than we've ever seen before. Is that because coaches have gotten really aggressive in scheduling? We've missed it? Or there's something different? Hold on a second, Matt. It turns out I've been talking. No one's heard you because somehow on my end, I've screwed up all the audio. So, Matt, you're fine. I heard Matt, folks. He was wonderful. They probably heard you through my microphone. So I'm going to use my microphone temporarily while I fix this problem. This is what happens when I put a Band-Aid on it. I hate to repeat, so let's go back. Let's talk quickly about the math, the OWP and OOWP. Is it a fair way to measure a team's schedule?
I think it's an easy way to get a consistent number. It's kind of explicit what the criteria are. 2/3 of the opponent's winning percentage, which teams you've played. 1/3 of the opponent's winning percentage, what teams they've played. And that's kind of the math that backs everything that the NCAA has decided is a team's strength of schedule.
Interestingly, I'm not getting you. I apologize, folks out there. I'm getting him fixed. Matt's going to repeat himself. He's going to drive himself crazy, and I apologize to him now. But I got a fix in mind, and we're going to do it temporarily. And I apologize for starting all over with this. And now it's muted. Now I bring him in on that.
You can hear me?
I can. It works that way.
Good.
All right.
Hey, no one missed anything. It's okay.
No one did. And you know what's great in the audio side and the podcast? I can edit all this. And now they're listening going, what is he editing? All right. Sorry to repeat. OWP, OOWP, one more time, please.
Yeah, so the basis of the strength of schedule is it's 2/3 of your opponent's winning percentage. So who have you played and what has their record been? And then 1/3 of that component is your opponent's winning percentage. So each team you've played, who have they played, how well have they done? That combines together to try to give you a strength of schedule, which is a record of how good your schedule is, not necessarily how good you are as a team.
Is it a fair way of measuring the strength of schedule?
I think it's a fairly easy and simplistic way that the NCAA has set up to measure a schedule. I would argue it's maybe not particularly a mathematically rigorous way to do it, but it's kind of a simple, consistent way that they've agreed to do it for now.
Not to put you on the spot a little bit here, but what do you think in Division III could work better? Is there a math that could work better?
It's hard to say. I know Division I has kind of gone away from this model. They've gone to, the net ratings now or something like that. And yeah. I don't even know what that's comprised of. It might be fair for Division III to look at something like that in the future. I think from where they were before the strength of schedule as a primary criteria, I think they're leaps and bounds above the quality of wins index. I don't think we want to go back there. But it's maybe a for now solution. It could be probably improved as the following maybe more of a Division I model.
I know Division I's gone away from the RPI for whatever reason. I don't know the RPI. I don't know this stuff well enough. But why does an RPI not work for Division III?
Our RPI is a little bit tricky for Division III, a little bit because of how isolated the regions are. There's not as much maybe cross-pollination as Division I. It's also can be the RPI is just also a simplistic calculation, how much the strength of schedule weighs into it. And in RPI calculation, it's 75% strength of schedule, only 25% winning percentage. So I think some people feel like the strength of schedule in the RPI can be too heavy-handed.
Okay, and that's where the net has come in Division I, but we don't need to go deep in that. Okay, Now, on the women's side, that's the SOS. It's opponent winning percentage, which takes 2/3 of the math, and their opponent's winning percentage, which takes 1/3. And by the way, we should point out, Matt, your result against that team does not factor in, correct? And that's important because you ultimately could screw yourself by winning.
Yeah, that's correct. So if you play a team and they're 24-1 at the end of the season because you beat them, you're the one loss in their schedule, that comes out of the math. So in your math, they look like an undefeated team. So I think that's important to realize that how you do against them does not weigh into your own schedule strength.
Okay. So the women, that's their math. And that's why our system can do it basically as long as our schedules are correct. Found one tonight. That's wrong. We're going to have to figure it out, but it's not going to make that big a math difference. The men put in a weighted side of this, and I know why they did it. They put in a weighted measure to say, okay, if you go on the road, you get an extra bonus, as it were, for playing that team. If you stay at home, you're going to get a little bit of a lesser bonus. The idea was to get some teams out of their buildings, and I fully endorse that. But how does that actually work in their math? What is the premise of how they're supposed to do that?
So, yeah, you're correct. I think the goal of this is to say it's harder to win on the road than it is at home. So if you're going to play a team that's won 45% of their games on the road, it's like playing a team that's won 50%. 55% at home is maybe more like 50% on a neutral site. That's the goal. How it's being executed, the math that I'm seeing when I'm trying to recreate the NCAA's strength of schedule data is that that's not really how it's implemented. I think the problem arises that they put in the multiplier, which is 1.25 for a road game and 0.75 for a home game. They're applying that multiplier to your opponent's wins and your opponent's total games played when they do the math. So it's kind of like multiplying the numerator and the denominator. And really what it does is it doesn't change the difficulty of each individual game. It just changes the impact of that game on your schedule. So if you play a really bad team and it's on the road, then that gets magnified versus playing them at home. So the really weird quirkiness of the math is it's actually better to play bad teams at home currently than it is to play bad teams on the road.
Which is tough to eliminate because sometimes you have home and homes or you get a team that just has a dud of a season. So that's an interesting quirk. Is that always existed?
As far as I know, this kind of quirk has existed since they added the home-away multiplier portion to it. And you're right. If the effect of having home and homes is just that the multiplier completely wipes out, which I guess would be the case anyway. But so that's just the team's total strength is what it is. It's kind of like playing two games on a neutral site the same way. But for whatever reason, when they put in the home-away multiplier, it looks like the math kind of got all wonky on the NCAA side.
All right, so here's the other part of this. You have argued for the last few years that at first the math was solid, well, relatively speaking, that the multipliers were working the way they were, that we could see a true strength of schedule outside of the quirk that playing a bad team on the road was killing you. Now you've seen a change. What has changed, and why should we know about it?
I think really, so everything that I did lined up perfectly before the multiplier was implemented. To me, the only change that has come about was when they tried to implement the multiplier, and how that did or did not really have the right impact or the impact that they wanted it to on the team's strength of schedule. So to me, I was perfectly happy and fine with everything they were doing pre-multiplier days. I really like the idea of the multiplier, but I've just not seen it implemented in a way that makes sense. And I think it's kind of giving us some erroneous results here.
So what were they doing? And I'm saying they being those who do the math at the NCAA. This is not a committee thing. This is in a whole nother department at Indianapolis. What were they doing with the math, and what do you think they've changed?
It's hard to say exactly, and I think you make a good point that this is not the RACs or the national committee that's doing this math. They're getting the data from the NCAA, the data they think they're telling them to get, and then they're making the decisions based on that, and they're making good decisions based on that. Somewhere in the NCAA, I don't know exactly how or why it changed, but when they threw the multiplier into the mix, We're no longer computing individual game opponents' winning percentage and opponents' winning percentage the same way as they were doing it before. Like I said, they seem to be adding the multiplier in there to kind of the wins portion and the games played portion for each team's component schedules for their opponents and opponents. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But they're doing it seemingly in a different way than before, and it's hard for me to see exactly why that is from my math. I just kind of recreate it and can see the end result, but I don't know the steps as to why that is.
Because at one point you did talk to those at the NCAA to get an understanding of how they were doing the math, and then when it changed, you had to figure it out. How significant is this change?
I think it could be fairly significant. I was looking at some numbers. Yeshiva, for example, I think the difference between the way maybe they used to be doing it or the way it should be done. Right now I would have them as a slightly over 500 schedule. Right now the NCAA has them, I think, at a .478 this last week based on the data sheets. So we've kind of used casually the 500 mark as a kind of Mendoza line of sorts, where if you're under this, you're kind of in trouble. They might discard your resume based on low strength of schedule, and they probably don't exactly do that. But it's going to be a difference in Yeshiva for like a .03 SOS difference right now. And if they're going to be on the table come Selection Sunday, that could be a big deal to them.
Well, and that's a huge deal, to be blunt, because that can make a difference in between a team being viable for an at-large or not. So, and I hate to ask this question, is the SOS now a number we shouldn't be even considering, or is it because the math's the math, we still have to consider it straight up?
That's tricky. I think they still have to consider it. I think we need to be clear on what the SOS is, right? You should always be using the strength of schedule and the winning percentage to inform each other. You should never be looking at just a strength of schedule and say this team is good because they have a 620 SOS. That number on its own doesn't mean very much. I don't know that we should completely discard it based on this weird math. I would say for the vast majority of teams, the numbers are still relatively close, especially in the middle. There's outliers on either end. So if the committee knew about this and they chose to maybe discount some of the strength of schedules, I wouldn't blame them for that. But it's sort of hard to say that this is the criteria, this is what we said, this is how the numbers are being computed, and yet we shouldn't use the number. So I don't exactly know how to speak to that. I'm not an expert on maybe how they should use it, but I think we should just all be aware that to me the numbers aren't being executed how they're being intended to.
All right, so I've got a couple questions from the those listening in before I get to another aspect of this. The first one is, do we have a timeline of when this all went into place? If memory serves, do you remember when we added the SOS? Because I think the SOS came in, and then the home-away multiplier came in second. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know the exact date, so I'm going to be wrong here. I think the SOS came in maybe 10, 12 years ago, and the multiplier came in 6, 7 years ago.
I feel like it was further back than that. But you might be.
It might be. I would have to go back and look. But you're right. We had several years with no multiplier, and then we've had a while now with this system of the multiplier.
I just remember one team in particular in my region, when the SOS came out, they played a ton of games at home. They were buoyed by their SOS. And we should point out, this replaced the QOWI, and there may have been something in between. Do not talk to us about the quality of wins index. We do not want to go down that rabbit hole ever again. I don't remember if there was something in between. Then the SOS came out. So I want to say the SOS has been around,
it could be 14, 15 years now.
16 some odd years. But then I know this one particular team, their SOS was huge. They looked like a great team, but they played maybe 2 games non-conference at most out of their gym. They have two tournaments in particular. And they weren't the only ones, but it's the one that's in my head. And there was this frustration. You can't sit at home and then be rewarded by staying at home in the tournament. And so the SOS multiplier came into play, because I remember they were forced to go out. The first year they didn't do it, but second, third, we started to see them move out the door. So it's been probably, the multiplier has probably been in place, and I could look up this team if I need to, but I bet you the multiplier has been in place 12 some odd years. My question to you is, when do you think the math changed?
I don't exactly remember the timeline. It would be hard for me to say when things shifted. I do remember, I'd have to look back in my archives when you helped me get in touch with some of the NCAA stats department. My memory serves that was about 4 or 5 years ago, but I don't exactly remember at this point. I'm going to have to apologize.
No, that's okay, because I think it was one of those where we felt comfortable that we knew the number, and then suddenly it wasn't adding up. You had to kind of sleuth it out, right?
Yeah, I always like the first set of regional rankings and the data sheets to come out because I put my numbers out throughout the year. People like Bob Quillman use them and try to predict the Pool C final results. And then I have like this panic, like, is this actually going to match up? Is what I put out right? And one year it wasn't right. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what they did. And that was probably like 5-6 years ago or so. And this is kind of the genesis of trying to chase down why the multiplier has been applied in the way it is and how it might be affecting the team schedules.
I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit here, and maybe use a strong word. But why is the way they're doing the math wrong?
It really, like I said, because they're adding the multiplier. It's all about how the multiplier is implemented. So when you take each team, so Calvin has played against Hope, and Hope is 12-12, and we're going to add the multiplier for their road game. 1.25 times Hope's 12 wins gets you whatever that is, 15, and then we're gonna add the multiplier to their total games played, which maybe is 24, let's say, then that gives you 30. So that component becomes 15 over 30. So that what that ends up doing is just makes their schedule overall bigger on your resume rather than more difficult on your resume. So it's like you're trying to fill your schedule up. You're trying to build a house, and you've got you've got large containers and you got small containers, and the multiplier just makes the size of the container bigger. It's not making it more difficult. It's not filling it with heavier materials. It's just making it bigger. It's taking up more space. So when you play a cupcake team and you play them on the road, it makes that look bigger on your schedule. So your schedule looks more cupcakey. That's kind of what it does.
So flip it. How should it be used?
Really, it should just be applied to the opponent's winning percentage. So
if they're 12-5, it should be on whatever 12 over 17 equals.
It should be correct. Yes.
Interesting. All right. You and I have talked a lot, and I'm now understanding it even better. Trust me, Matt and I have talked a lot over the years, and I'm only now fully. I tell people all the time when I talk about this, at some point I'm in the weeds, because as good as I was at math, I loved math. This is a road too far. All right, so let me flip this on its head a little bit. Is there a way of doing something for a strength of schedule in Division III that could work? Have you ever come up with something you think could work on a strength of schedule basis? And if you have, what would it look like?
I haven't dived too far into this. Personally, I like more efficiency-based metrics. I kind of understand the NCAA is not going to use this to probably select teams. In addition to running this kind of strength of schedule data, I kind of create my own efficiency ratings for teams, kind of like Ken Pomeroy does for Division I. I personally like that.
Ken Pom for everybody, the short name, yeah.
I really like that as kind of a better view of team strength, and from that you can get maybe a truer, in my mind, strength of schedule. That being said, I don't know that the current system is completely broken. If we just fixed a little bit of the math, I think it would make more sense. It would be a reasonable system. I think right now the math just makes the strength of schedule somewhat untrustworthy.
And we should point out the women, again, not using the home away multiplier. Their math is their math. It's fine. We really don't have an issue on the women's side of this. It's more on the men's. and it's about how the math's done. It's not necessarily how the committee's using it, and I don't want to point that out. That all said, is efficiency really telling us also strength of schedule, though? Because efficiency also is kind of telling you how a team is doing in performance, and that's more like an RPI, right?
Certainly the efficiency metrics for a team would be just their performance. But you can figure out what are the efficiency ratings, offense, defense, and then the margin between those two for each of your opponents. And then you could figure out kind of how strong each team is on your schedule. So from there, you could get a schedule strength. But yeah, the efficiency rating. Yeah, you'd take a next step.
Okay.
But certainly the main efficiency rating would be just that team's strength.
So with this in mind, knowing that the SOS number may not be absolutely as solid as we'd like it, that it's somewhat flawed, is there a recommendation you would make to the RACs or to the National Committee, who have to use those numbers, and they're not going to ignore the SOS, but would you say to them, hey, just because the team's below 500 doesn't really mean they have a weak schedule? Would you go that far?
Yeah,
or Matt, real quick, let me flip it. If a team's really got a high SOS, maybe that's not a true statement of how good their schedule is.
Yeah, I think it's maybe more critical that they dive into the numbers. The strength of schedule, the winning percentage are just two of the primary criteria. I think they're going to have to use it all. I think they're going to have to look at where it is. And they have in the secondary criteria, they have non-conference strength of schedule, so they can see how much their current conference is pulling down their schedule strength. Did they try to schedule outside of their conference? So can they use some of the secondary criteria to make a decision? So in that case, I wouldn't throw it out. I wouldn't necessarily say devalue it, but I think they're really going to have to use all the criteria and look into it, and maybe just not trust that at face value all the time.
Okay, I like that point. By the way, the non-conference SOS, I get those numbers from you. I made that argument with somebody. They're like, well, why isn't X team ranked? I said, well, their SOS is a 447, I think it was. And then someone made a comment about, conference. I said, well, ironically, their non-conference schedule's a 367. So really, and they had 5 games and they did nothing with them. And again, I understand scheduling's hard. One other thing I've talked to you about is I feel like people use the SOS incorrectly. They feel like it's some strength of the team. And I think when we've had some at-large picks, we've had not crazy picks, but ones outside the norms. We've had teams with a number of losses, a winning percentage below 2/3. They didn't even win 2/3 of the games, but their SOS is staggering. And I've had people make the argument, well, it just shows you how good they are. Why do we do that?
Yeah, I think we need to be very clear on that. The strength of schedule is not a sense of individual team strength. So just because you have a high strength of schedule does not mean you're a good team. I can make you a really strong schedule and you're going to win none of those games, and that doesn't mean you're very good. I can make you an easy schedule and you're going to win all those games. That might not mean you're very good. So I think it's important that we're always using the strength of schedule when it's done right in conjunction with the winning percentage to make sure that we're making a fair assessment. We've gotten into some of the teams this year, some of the UW schools, Stevens Point and Oshkosh are kind of in that boat where they have really high really high strength of schedules, but pretty low winning percentages below 65%. They did not show up being ranked in the last regional rankings. But Oshkosh was one of those teams a few years back that kind of set a new bar for how low your winning percentage can be with a high strength of schedule.
Yeah, they did.
And that's a difficult decision for the committee. They were, I think, a good team that year. But is it fair to leave out a team that might be pushing a 90% winning percentage that has a strength of schedule in the 475? It's really hard to compare those two. And I know the committee was given rules of thumb a while back about the .03 strength of schedule equals 2 wins. And then that was stretched out to .09 equals 6 games or something like that. And that's just really hard to do. I tried to punch some of my own numbers about what the comparisons should be. I don't even really know the right answer. I think that the committee just needs to be consistent on how they're going to do it and just decide for themselves what they're looking to reward and how they're going to weigh each of those criteria. I think it is really difficult to include a team who's won fewer than 70% of their games in the tournament above a team who's won maybe 85, 90% of their games. But I'm also against drawing hard lines. I don't like to say if your strength of schedule is below 500, then you're out. If your winning percentage is below 700, then you're out. I think throwing all those teams into the mix, that's why we have committees. I think Sam Atkinson said that during his interview during the Hoopsville Marathon. Yes. You have the committee because you're going to make some of those decisions. You're going to dig into all the criteria. And I think at that point, you're looking at the wins versus regionally ranked opponents. You're looking at the secondary criteria too and trying to decide which team has a strong schedule because they happen to be in a strong conference and which team has a strong schedule because they went out there and they made it happen in the non-conference. And I think maybe they might look to reward those teams. I don't know exactly how they do it, but that's kind of my guess.
No. I like how and I agree. I don't think there's some hard lines. I like the idea of saying, hey, if you're below 500 on your SOS, you're in some danger. If you're below 667 or 700 in your winning percentage, you're in some danger. We can go around in circles about the Oshkosh decision and then the other one that came after that. Ironically, both of them were, or coincidentally, they were both in WIAC schools. Before I let you go, though, can you explain to me, the NESCAC is one that always drives people crazy. They're SOS in part because they don't play a traditional double round robin. Some do. But why is their numbers always driven so high? Is it a scheme, to put you on the spot a little bit? And how do we better understand those SOS numbers out of the NESCAC?
Yeah, the NESCAC's the interesting situation. They probably play, I don't know if this is right, the fewest conference games of any conference in Division
outside
III.
the ACAA that doesn't play any.
Yeah, right. And I should say the NESCAC's obviously a very good league. They're one of the best leagues in D3 right at the top. If you had to name the top 3 or 4 leagues, they're right in there. But whenever you play more conference games, you have a bigger conference slate, a team in your conference has to win and a team in your conference has to lose. And that is always going to drive your conference's strength of schedule more toward 500. So it's not necessarily going to be higher for the NESCAC because they play fewer, but it's going to give them an opportunity to be more extreme than other conferences. The NESCAC being a good league, they like to play other teams, other top teams in conferences in the region and around the area. Those teams are not quite as good as they are. So if you're 5th in the NESCAC, you can beat the leader of the GNAC or something like that more times. So I don't know if if they can beat up on the top teams in other leagues in the Northeast region more than other teams can, and that kind of games the system a little bit, if I could say that. But if it can come down to, if they're not playing as many conference games, then that just gives them the opportunity to push that schedule up without anything bringing it back toward 500.
And obviously they're going to want to play good teams. They're in general, they're not going to want to play bad teams because it can result in bad tendencies and bad habits and all of that. But with that in mind, is that another example of where the committee's got to be diving into the numbers, because that SOS is so high? I'll say this, it's almost like the SOS is on a bell curve. There's a certain area there where you can trust it, but when you get to the extremes, at some point you got to go, okay, let's put that aside and look elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's another area where you could go into the secondary criteria if they're allowed to and look at the non-conference strength of schedule and just compare that to a team who didn't have as many opportunities to go outside of their conference and say, conference games aside, how even were these teams' schedules? And you can maybe decide not to reward their total in-division strength of schedule because it was buoyed more by the fact that they didn't play as many conference games. They are still, I think the ones with high strength of schedules are still going out and playing good teams and should be rewarded, but they just don't have that pull toward 500 that other conferences have.
Sure, and I appreciate you kind of breaking that one down. I know some people get frustrated. It's just the nature of the beast, as it were. Ryan Scott's tuned in. He says he finally gets it. His question is, why doesn't the NCAA make what seems like a pretty simple change? Have we ever gotten an answer on that? I don't know if you've ever tried to get back in touch with the stats guys. I know the avenues I've gone, they hit roadblocks. We don't even know why the change was made in the first place, but it feels really crazy that they're not looking at trying to fix it. And I realize I may be putting some words in their mouths.
Yeah, we just haven't really heard anything back. It's been several years now. You helped me get in touch with some folks at the NCAA. We corresponded over email. I don't even think I was talking directly to anyone in the stats department. It was probably some manner of liaison in between. And it was, I would send some numbers and some explanation. And as people are hearing right now in the show, it's hard to say verbally what exactly is the math, right? It's awesome to talk about numbers over the air. Everyone loves to hear numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
It's difficult in emails to explain exactly what's happening, at least for me. So without actually talking face-to-face to someone, I wasn't actually able to see much change happen. I kind of got a response at one point saying they think that what they're doing is correct or is what they want to happen, and that it kind of got dropped at that point. I wasn't convinced. I'm still not convinced.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
So it would be nice to get some sort of direction or answer from the NCAA saying that they're interested in it, looking at it, and confirmation that it's right. I don't believe it's right. But yeah, we don't know. We don't know what they're doing.
I'll say this. My phone's had a few messages. I have a feeling it's going to go up the chain a little bit. Not now. It's an off-season thing. Not in a bad way, Matt. Not in a bad way. All right, I've taken a ton of your time. We've used a ton of time here on the show, much more than I expected, but it's such a fascinating story. I didn't want to go too far in the weeds, but you've done a great job of letting us understand it better. I appreciate this. I should point out two things. One, that .03 to 2 games, which somehow got extrapolated out to .06 to 9 or 6 games or whatever it was, that's been done away from. The committee stopped using that last year. They're not using it this year. It's nice if we want to use it, but we're just going into a rabbit hole we don't need to. The second thing I should point out, this multiplier isn't just used in men's basketball. There's other sports. I think one of the soccers uses it. One sport, I think, started to use it and then it's gone away from it. So this is not just a men's basketball issue. It just happens to be we're a men's and women's basketball show. Matt, any other thoughts you wanted to present about the SOS before I let you go? The math or how it's used, how it's understood, to help those out there understand it better, including maybe those who have to use it themselves?
No, I always encourage people to kind of dive in and try to figure out the details for themselves. I get a lot of questions on email and on Twitter about what I do. Obviously, mine are not official. My rankings are not official. I use the RPI just as a sorting mechanism, not because the NCAA actually uses it. And also understanding it's just one of 5 criteria. It just happens to be one of the most opaque to me, and that's kind of why I started digging into the numbers and creating my own spreadsheets to come up with it for the Division III community, because I think it's fun to look at and talk about, and then we can kind of see what the criteria are that the committees might be using. So I think it was just kind of a fun project for me, and I'm glad that it's kind of grown a bit over the years.
Grown. Sir, I feel like it's a monster for you as much as this baby has become a monster for me.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time, but it's kind of fun, and it's because I found myself doing it anyway that I just wanted to present it to the rest of Division III. So I'm happy to do it.
We have a link to your math to the SOS numbers on our website at d3hoops.com. Go under the news column. On the men's side, you'll see the strength of schedule. On the women's side too, just sends you to 2 different places. The women's stays on our site. The men's goes to your site. Quickly, your breakdown of a lot of this is also on the Pool C chat boards on d3boards.com under posting up, which is Hoops side. But do you break it down elsewhere that we can send people to?
The breakdowns are really just the numbers that you already linked to. The Pool C board is great. I personally don't chime into that as much as I used to, just given time constraints. But some others, fill the board up. I chime in when I can. Bob Quillman, first and foremost, is always posting his weekly breakdowns in there, trying to predict the number. Drew Pasteur on Twitter, D3 Bubble, always breaks down his numbers too. So those folks are great. Everyone in the Division III community is great, sharing their work, sharing their numbers, and it's just fun to participate.
Real quick though, you did break down where this math may be a semi messed up, correct?
Yeah, I had a blog post a little bit when I was more active several years ago about the funky math. So I might post that back out on my Twitter just to kind of, if people want to understand a little bit more in depth, I kind of showed some examples in there as I understood it 7 years ago, which is kind of roughly the same as now. But I'll retweet that out tonight, and people can check that out if they want.
I'm actually putting your Twitter on the byline. I should have had it up there sooner. FFT Mag is how you can find Mr. Snyder. Sir, really appreciate the time. Again, you spent more than I expected, but I think it's an in-depth. I've already had a number of people message me that this was a tremendous understanding of it. I appreciate it. I'm probably going to, rarely I go back to listen to a segment. I think I'm going to do that with this one, mainly to figure out where I'm editing out the bad audio. We'll figure that out later. But, sir, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for letting us understand this better. We'll see in the offseason if it gets augmented, but it helps us understand why the SOS exists, how to use it properly, and maybe how not to overuse it is a better way of saying it. Any final thoughts?
No, just that this is my favorite time of Division III season. Regional rankings, the data's out in full force. Conference tournaments are coming out. NCAA selection. So this is just a great time to be a Division III fan.
Yeah, agree with you. This is my favorite time of year as well. Thanks so much, Matt. Take care of yourself. Good luck. I'm sorry about your Knights this year, but maybe next year?
We could still win that conference tournament, get the AQ, and, who knows from there.
That's true. That's a good point. Hey, take care. Enjoy the DeVos Center. We'll talk to you soon.
See you, Dave.
Matt Snyder joining us on the BlueFrame Technology Hoopsville Hotline via Skype. Appreciate him taking the time. Really fun to chat with him. I'm going to wrap up the show at this point, not take a break because it's insane to do otherwise. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. I want to thank all of our coaches, Steve Lammy at Grove City, Coach Robinson Griggs at Vassar. Also want to thank Tanya Englund at UW Eau Claire, Justin Heinzen at Loris, and, of course, Matt Snyder. I want to thank all the sports information directors as well. Briggsy, that's what he's known as, so we'll call him Briggsy. Briggsy at Grove City. I want to thank, it's Emily at Eau Claire. At Vassar, it was Amy. Great to see Amy get the job at Vassar, by the way. Just a behind-the-scenes story there. I'm glad to see she's at Vassar. At Loris, oh, my goodness, how did I forget Loris? I was talking to Justin so much that I misplaced Loris's. I apologize. That's just bad on my part. But thanks to them for their help. Matt didn't get any SID help, but I'll thank him nonetheless, and anybody who helped him do it. That's going to wrap up our show really late tonight. Apologize, but we'll get going. A reminder, Sunday show not airing. I've got another gig that I need to work. By the way, fun, haha story. Somebody watching the show decided to have a little fun with our donations, make it a palindrome, if you noticed. We're up to 2,300 plus, closing in on 2,400. Notice the goal is 5. We're not that close. So we got by Monday to get that up, but funny, haha. Same person who wanted to have a little fun with the number during the marathon too, by the way, I'll add. Again, I've got a great idea to change this audio board. It's going to cost me $600. That's a significant bill, and I want to do it to help solve some of these audio issues that we have, because it would make it simpler, to be honest. It's a fascinating little piece of device. I want to use it, and to be blunt, we didn't get as much advertising this year. There's certain organizations that decided not to advertise this year. We had struggles because of my health and distractions getting our advertising system out the door at the beginning of the year. It's things we want to improve. I'm not the kind of guy who likes asking for money. So consider that. I did fix the donation buttons. Apparently they were awry. I fixed them on tonight's show. I will fix them moving forward. I'll try and go back and fix them. But we've tweeted them out. We've used them, put them on Facebook as well. We put them on Instagram. Please look for them. They're through PayPal, so don't be thrown off by that. And there you go. So Sunday show will be postponed to Monday, 7 o'clock Eastern time. We will do our normal Monday show, probably a little top 25. I still plan to dive into some other topics. There's topics about officiating that I want to get into by the end of the season, and some other kind of nuanced topics like we had with Matt. So look for those as well. And a reminder, in 2.5 weeks' time, we'll be doing our selection show on Sunday, and then the matchups and the brackets come out on Monday. We're debating about doing a matchup show on Monday night, and I'm not going to do it right after we're going to postpone to Monday night. There's a lot of reasons behind that. I don't think we need to get on the air immediately after those brackets are released. I think we can give it time and go out on Sunday, and then we head into the tournament. So there's a quick synopsis. We'll get more of our schedule out there in the coming days. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. I'm checking to make sure there aren't any last-minute questions somewhere along the lines. Kind of a quiet night in the chatting rooms, but I appreciate you all on the same. And there you go, folks. Thanks for tuning in. You've been listening to Hoopsville. I want to thank our partners at D3Hoops.com, the Women's Basketball Coaches Association. Great shirt, by the way. Love this one. National Association of Basketball Coaches. Of course, BlueFrame Technology. BlueFrame is not only our sponsor of our hotline, which we greatly appreciate, but they provide this streaming platform, which you can see on OTT, which means if you have a Roku, an Amazon Fire, an Apple TV, or any Android connected device, You can go look up the Team One Sports app and call us in via that. Watch us on the big screen, as it were. You can also watch us through our team1sports.com/Hoopsville page as well. Watch former shows. Also, our podcasts are pretty popular. I want to thank that. Hey, maybe we can get a sponsor for our podcast. How about that? Thanks for everybody for tuning in. Appreciate it. We'll see you back here again Monday night, 7 o'clock Eastern. At that point, we will have new top 25s and looking at our second week in regional rankings. Thanks for tuning in. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC Studios. Remember, if you want to talk Division III, you've got to watch Hoopsville. Good night, everybody.